If I could have your attention, please. I'd like to welcome you to our September 9th council meeting. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. We thank you for participating in your city government. We ask that you now please silence all electronic devices. With that, I call this council meeting to order. At this time, I'd like everyone to please stand for our invocation. We'd like to welcome Pastor Aidan Whiteman, pastor of the Amazing Grace Baptist Church, and after which, if you remain standing for the pledge.
Almighty God, we're so grateful today to have a city council that looks to the God of heaven for wisdom and guidance and help. Intercede for them and help them and intercede for their thoughts. Encourage them and help them, our Father, to know that the business that they are doing is an awesome business. It encourages people for business. It has to do with funds and money. Oh Lord, I just thank you for their wisdom and guidance as they take care of the business, the financial area of St. Cloud. Oh, precious Lord, be with St. Cloud and bless this city. Might it be a lighthouse to the rest of the state of Florida as we sit here right in the very center, the gem of Florida. Might the cross that used to be on top of our water tower remind us of the cross of Calvary. Precious Lord, I just pray for our law enforcement, St. Cloud PD, that you protect and help them, intercede for them. Each member, each one that's working, each one that's part of that family, that, Lord, protect and watch over them as they put a uniform on, they become a target. Watch over the families, bring them safety and guidance and care, comfort as their loved ones go off to work. Pray for our city fire rescue to encourage them and help them and keep them safe. It's a terrible, terrible, dangerous job that they're doing. And Lord, we're so grateful for them and for their courage. I pray, our Lord, also for those involved in the medical field, in our hospital, and our doctors in St. Cloud, that you protect them and grant them wisdom and guidance, particularly this pandemic that's going around. I pray, our Lord, you give wisdom and guidance now to those that are here to bring the needs that has to be done for St. Cloud and all that's involved with St. Cloud business and commerce. Bless and encourage tonight. We ask it all in Christ's precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Whiteman. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Trace?
Here.
Councilmember Matheny? Here. Councilmember Askew?
Here. Mr. Sturgeon, do you have any additional additions that we haven't already addressed to the agenda here?
Yes, sir. I have a couple changes to the agenda tonight. First off, the presentations, I'm going to change the orders of those. The Freshwater Fish Commission will go first, the Incident Management Team Water Update second, and then Ossiel Engineering third, and then we have a special presentation by the police chief.
Thank you. So noted.
Also on the consent agenda, I'd like to pull item T Tango 2021-246R. It will not be on the consent agenda tonight.
All right. So noted. Item T on the consent agenda has been pulled by the city manager. At this time, we'll begin with our first presentation by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Good friend of mine, Jim Sweatman. It's good to have you here, Jim.
Thank you. It's an honor to stand before you this evening. I do have a connection with St. Cloud for at least a quarter of a century. I've enjoyed your Parks and Recreation Department. My kids literally learned how to swim in your pool. My son learned t-ball on your ball fields, and my daughter played volleyball in your gym. So this is a little bit more than just a typical presentation that I do for the Fish Orlando program. But one of the reasons I'm here, I always tell people, tell them you're going to do it, and then tell them you did it, right? So this is a tell them you did it and a thank you for those that helped you. And I want to thank Stephanie and your Parks and Recreation staff for partnering with our St. Cloud Borrow Pit. It's one of our fantastic fishing day units. And we limit the fishing pressure to keep the fish stupid and the fishing fantastic. Okay, you'll see. And that's in the video we're about ready to show you. It's a documentary video that includes this. And then when the video's done, I'd like to go ahead and give you a token of our appreciation and commemoration of the occasion. Without further ado, I give you Fish Orlando, family fishing fun through the years. The year is 1998. Florida is becoming more and more urbanized. In response, the FWC is looking for new ways to provide good fishing in the greater Orlando area. Enter Fish Orlando, a program designed to provide and promote convenient quality fishing opportunities in the greater Orlando area with a focus on bringing quality fishing to families. Why families, you ask? Because the majority of us got started fishing before the age of 16 by a family member. So long before Instagram, long before TikTok, long before most Americans even owned a cell phone, the Fish Orlando team began the legacy journey of creating what is now a significant fisheries resource in the heart of Greater Orlando. A resource that has generated millions of dollars to the local economy and reached millions of anglers that have come from as far away as 48 other states and 20 other countries. So with all that said, we invite you to come along on a tour, a documentary tour, a tour that involves the history of many, many years of hard work that has created the heartbeat of what we now call Fish Orlando.
First on the tour is the Fish Orlando Big Water Bodies. The management goal of these 4 lake chains is to preserve and protect the bass's home or habitat. This is accomplished by working with plant managers and habitat biologists. An example being the 2018 Johns Lake project that opened prime bass fishing areas that were once unusable. Next stop along the tour is the Fab Five. The Fab Five are 5 lakes that are managed for quality-sized fish and/or a unique fishing experience. Thousands of hours and dollars have been spent to make Clear Lake, Lake Ivanhoe, Stark Lake, Turkey Lake, and Lake Underhill top-notch fishing destinations. Stocking hybrid striped bass in Clear Lake, managing deep water hydrilla beds on Lake Underhill, and installing fish attractors are just some of the activities that help craft the Fab Five into the cornerstone of the Fish Orlando program. While those that have boats certainly benefit from the work on the Fab Five, the Fish Orlando team went to great lengths to help the non-boater. Fishing piers, baited fishing areas, and fishing lanes are just a few examples of work done to assist the Fab Five shorebound angler. Any discussion of the Fab Five would be incomplete without featuring the Turkey Lake Boat Loaner program. Thanks to Bass Pro Shops Orlando, the City of Orlando, and the FWC, the Fish Orlando team made it possible for anglers on Turkey Lake to rent Tracker Grizzlies, equipped with trolling motors, depth finders, and anchors. The lake has no other public boating access. Limited boating pressure, large-scale habitat enhancement projects, and a largemouth bass catch and release regulation were all factors that created good bass fishing enjoyed by residents and visitors alike. The work did not go unnoticed, and the program has been featured on the internet, TV, radio, and in many forms of printed media. While the Fab Five are the cornerstone of the Fish Orlando program, the fantastic Fishing Day waters are the newcomers that cannot be ignored. These waters are open to the public on a limited basis to keep the fish unpressured and the fishing fantastic. Stocking, fish feeding, and maintaining good bank access were all key ingredients for success on these units. As you can see, when the customers are able to fish these unpressured waters, the fishing is fantastic. A few of these units are coupled with fishing camps and fishing instruction for the whole family, designed to recruit, retain, and re-engage anglers. The final stop on the tour is the Urban Ponds. Designed for beginning fishers and those that wish to eat their catch, these 4 ponds have good bank access, are in safe parks, and are small enough that the fish can easily be reached from shore. Work on these ponds included providing aerators that optimize oxygen, routine stockings of catfish and grow out largemouth bass, creating baited fishing areas, and constructing bridges and piers. Add all of this up, and Fish Orlando patrons experience a family-friendly destination tailored for the novice angler. While the primary goal of Fish Orlando is to manage aquatic resources to provide good family fishing, the program has also reached out to the public using such tools as an online webpage, social media posts, user-friendly kiosks, informative maps, a mobile app, and numerous events. Equally important are partnerships with the Orange County Teen Sport Fishing Association, Bill Frederick Park's Florida Youth Conservation Center Network Camp, and helping Bass Pro Shops Orlando conduct events that feature family fishing instruction and an in-store catch and release pond. Last, and certainly not least, the Fish Orlando team spends countless hours assisting with the FWC's Trophy Catch program, a program which rewards bass anglers for catching and releasing bass 8 pounds or greater.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. I'm looking forward to the ranch at St. Cloud being on the next one. In the meantime, I'd like to present a plaque to the mayor and the commissioners. It says the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission would like to extend sincere thanks to the city of St. Cloud for helping the Fish Orlando program bring quality fishing to families 2014 to 2021. And that was done right here in the city of St. Cloud with St. Cloud Printing, so we could do utilize.
Well, I know what I'd rather be doing right now. At this time, we have a report from our incident management team. I believe Mr. Newsom and Mr. Gilbert, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jim, for that report, by the way.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. We, emergency response educators and consultants, EREC, out of Ocala, Florida, we have had the opportunity in the past to do exercises and training here in St. Cloud, and was very honored when we got asked to lead this special project. So thank you, the executive body, for the opportunity to be here. What we utilize is something called NIMS, National Incident Management System, for an all-hazard incident management team. So our personnel are trained to go into a variety of different incidents. This was a unique one. We've been actively engaged for the last year and a half dealing with COVID, and this was a unique experience to come in and work with something different. Our team is a force multiplier. We came in to support the city operations here and the city personnel as they move forward to enhance those operations and support the infrastructure that they had established to be able to go forth and to mitigate the resin within the water distribution system. So our team is basically a command and coordination element that works under the city at the direction of the city manager through what is called a delegation of authority. So we're provided a delegation of authority that would help to reduce the burden on the city personnel so that they could handle other projects and go about with some of the day-to-day operations that they needed to, because this takes time and effort to be able to move forward with this. So we worked with the delegation of authority. The commander, as far as the city manager, presented a commander's intent or city manager's intent for the team to work with. And Guess I should advance that. So this team comes through to help with that burden. We're here to provide command and control infrastructure to support the personnel here, handle information, look at the safety for the 3 different contractors that are on ground that are working through ice pigging, swabbing, and then unidirectional flow. Provide planning resources and logistical support to the city as they go through with a synchronized and coordinated effort to work with those vendors. We also work to develop the strategies and incident action plans. So daily, our planning section chief, along with the team, would develop, and I believe you have it at your tables here, a copy of what is called an incident action plan, or a sample of that IAP. And that IAP is how all of the vendors and the incident management team and the city staff work cohesively together to be able to go forth for that period of operation daily and do the task at hand. Weekly, that team then formulates a report, which is a weekly progress report that goes to the city manager. They work very closely with the city officials, city leadership, to develop informed decisions. So they're meeting on a regular basis, they're getting information, taking that information, and working with it to be able to come up with good informed decisions. And then the other key component was to synchronize the communications, working very closely with your communications director to help to make sure that we're getting the word out to the citizens within the community of the progress that is being made and the actions that are going to be taken to mitigate this incident within the community. So the team is made up of trained professionals that have a strong working knowledge in emergency management and the all-hazard incident management system. So we have an incident commander, a safety officer, we have a public information officer that is a support to your communications director or PIO. We have an operations chief, a planning chief, a logistics chief, and a finance and administration chief. So they all work very closely together as a cohesive team to support the mission along with the city and community partners and the stakeholders. I'm not going to go over this slide here, but for your edification, each of those positions, there is a short description of the activities that they're responsible for and oversee as part of that incident management team here in the city of St. Cloud. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the incident commander for the operation, Mike Gilbert.
Thank you, Lee. Good evening. One of the basic thing that really makes this team work is the fact that we are brought in to handle one problem and one problem only. All of our focus is on that problem. So far, we've reviewed timelines of the past events. We've brought ourselves up to speed on what happened, how it happened, and we have brought ourselves to the point where we can make informed decisions and meet with the city directors and personnel and make, recommendations. We've challenged past assumptions of things and just kind of had a look at this from the outside in. We've also, we've lessened the burden on the city staff. We've done mapping, we've done door hangers. And this is all things that needed to be done, but we ended up taking it over so that they didn't have that burden to bear and they could get back to doing some of the functions that the city needed to get done. We facilitated communications and ensured that all stakeholders are working as a whole. We've obtained additional personnel during the ice pigging to assist with that. We've got people from Toho Water Authority, OUC, St. Cloud Zone Parks and Recs have helped us out. We've actually even got people from Labor Force and even the Osceola CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, has all been there to help us out. Some of the mission achievements that we've done, we've established weekly media briefings. We've done support with the public information officer to get the information out in a timely manner. We provide oversight of the current cleanup operations. We're out there every day when they're ice pigging. We're monitoring them, making sure that they have what they need in order to get the job done. We've also sat and developed strategies with everybody involved. For example, the unidirectional flushing plan, we've expanded that to include the problem areas, even some of the areas that we've already swabbed and we've already ice pigged. We're going to go back and flush those in the unidirectional flushing plan. We have accessed or are making progress and strides in accessing the transmission line underneath the turnpike to get cameras in there. This is all in place now, and we are working towards that end. Likewise, we want to get closed-circuit TV cameras in the water system and look at those problem areas that seem to always be coming back to haunt us, so to say. We want to get in there and look at that. We're going to take a very hard look at the system from the inside out. Once we get all of the pigging done and all of the flushing done and the line swabbing of the main lines, we're going to take a look at that from the inside. One milestone that we are readily achieving is the completion of ice pigging. It is going to be completed this Saturday, September 11th. This is a map. In the blue, you'll see everything that we have line swabbed, and in the black, everything that we've ice pigged. And again, we only have a small area to go, and that, again, will be completed on Saturday. Some of the next steps, again, we're going to get closed-circuit TV in the distribution area where the problems are and take a look at it. And again, after we have done all of the means necessary to clean everything out, we're going to go back once we're done and take a look and make sure that it is absolutely gone. Again, access the point by the turnpike to get a camera in there. It's a long process to do that. It's a difficult process, and we want to be able to access that and get a camera in there. We want to implement the new unidirectional flushing program as soon as the ice pigging is complete and we take care of the issues that are at the water plant treatment 4 right now. We're going to get the tanks clean. We're going to clean the lines, and we are going to take a systematic approach. We are going to go from the treatment plant through the transmission line and out through the distribution system. We're working on that right now. We have people in place that are making those plans happen. We want to develop a reoccurring citywide flushing program, both unidirectional and conventional flushing, to maintain, once we get everything taken care of, we want to be able to maintain that. The other thing we want to do is review all the policies and procedures of the water treatment plants and just take a good hard look at that and make sure that everything is going according to the way it's supposed to be, and any improvements or additions that we can make.
Okay. And as Mike says, there is a team of people that are doing this. There are multiple contractors that the city has that are doing separate operations. There are city personnel that are actively engaged in it. So when he says we, he means collectively everybody's working together as a cohesive team to accomplish the sole mission.
Well, I certainly appreciate the work that you have done, and it certainly has taken a burden off our staff. We certainly appreciate the strategic way that you've addressed this problem and how we believe that you're certainly going to help us come to a quick resolution. And thank you so much for what you've done. Mr. Sturgeon, would you like to say anything?
No, I just want to thank the team. They will be demobilizing Saturday, but those plans, they have those final plans they'll be giving us and handing it back over to our staff to complete that unidirectional flushing and all those tasks that we've identified that need to be accomplished. But I want to thank Lee and Mike and the rest of the team and my environmental utilities team and all those contractors that came in and helped us, OUC, Toho, and the CERT team. So it's been a team effort, and it's been a pleasure to work with you gentlemen. And ladies. Back row, I see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we will have a presentation by the Osceola Engineering for Florida Avenue Multi-Use Trail. I believe by Mr. Clark, is that correct?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Richard Clark, landscape architect with Osceola Engineering Incorporated at 103 Florida Avenue. I was requested to do an assessment of the impact for the proposed multi-use, the Florida Avenue multi-use trail that was part of the March 2021 master plan document that you all received. My assessment was limited to the median area from Lake Shore to 10th Street, and basically needed to assess what the impact of the proposed trail down that median would be to the existing trees. Support documentation was provided by the city arborist, and that who made an assessment of the trees in the median from that in that area, documenting whether the tree was considered to be in good health, fair health, or recommended for removal. And then I additionally walked the site, making assessments on the trees as far as looking at what the root flare condition was and any conditions of the tree in and around it, whether or not it looks to be leaning, one way or the other, whether the branches, might interfere with the trail use. And the information that I'm presenting to you is done by, the figures are done by a block-by-block assessment. But just so you understand, the typical segment which you see up there, and that shows a 10-foot multi-use path that meanders through the median, but it does not go to the edge of the curb. It's stopping several feet back from the edge of the curb so that it doesn't, go out to that edge, so that'd be landscaped. That was the premise of what we started with. One of the things to understand that was imprinted to me was during the development and the master planning process, the city input was that their preference was for a meandering path. So we wanted to make sure that we could understand what that impact was for a meandering path versus what would typically be a straight sidewalk kind of pathway system. The methodology as far as what was shown by GAI in their master plan indicated that they would expand the median width to the west and then push the right-of-way curb of the travel lane on the west side over as well. Engineering-wise, we evaluated that and determined it would be more effective to actually widen the median in both symmetrically both directions and reduce slightly the drive aisle width. At this point in time, that's what you're seeing in the exhibits. In looking at the plan for GAI and keeping that meandering with not going all the way to the edge of curb, and with the condition that the majority of the trees in the median are actually centrally located down the center line of that median, to hold strictly to the meandering element as GII presented would basically wipe out, all of the trees, just because the flares of a lot of the large trees would get impacted and those trees would go. The exhibits in the meandering, and that we took that out to the edge of the curb, so in some cases, the path goes to the back of the curb on one side, to the back of the curb on the other, which gives us adequate area in which to preserve more trees. And I guess somewhere in here I've got control of this, unless I go the wrong way. So block by block, the Lakeshore to Cypress, the master plan actually, that block was actually not a meandering one. They actually showed it off to the one side on the east side of the right-of-way. I've held that. The assessment of those cypress is that, again, being in the center line, a meandering path would be difficult to go through there without removing a substantial amount. And the existing condition of the bald cypress with all their knees, you don't have any knees that you can visually see sticking up out of the ground because over time maintenance is just basically maintain them at ground level. The mowers have done a good job of, not letting them come up, but there are a lot of them in there, so it would have an impact for any use. The impact as far as in that particular block, off to the one side, you would lose one large tree. There was an assessment, not an assessment done on that. I couldn't tell you what the health of that is, but there'd be no way for that tree to remain and to be able to get sidewalk or a multi-use path down that. So that the tree impact in that block would be one large oak tree. The next block, which goes to the cypress, the third, you've got sweet gum and 16 crepe myrtles and a couple jacaranda trees in there.
Mayor?
And the alignment in that regard would, I'm sorry.
Could you stop a second? We have a question.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question before you move on from
Yes.
this slide? So on the Lakeshore to Cypress, that it says a 28-inch oak tree that's
Yes.
going to be impacted. So is there a way to skinny up the trail through there? Because I know that's allowable through, I mean, we've got a 10-foot trail. Could we go down to a 5-foot trail to save the tree? Is
The-
there anything we could do or put it on the other side or?
What is shown on the exhibit is the fact that it's a 8-foot wide path currently shown, and it's right up to the edge of the tree, and given the flare on a 28-inch oak tree, and if I remember correctly in that one, it has a little bit of a raised element to it. It's unlikely to be able to get around it, either one side or the other.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Going back into, like I said, on the cypress, this one, you're meandering, and the alignment is shown as an 8-foot path, and it would impact 6 crepe myrtles, half of which are basically listed as in fair condition. The 3rd to 4th Street, you've got 26 trees, 7 of which are noted good, 16 are recommended for removal by the arborist. And the path alignment there would impact 3 trees, a crepe myrtle and 2 non-native trees that are noted in fair condition. On item 2 there, the 3rd to 4th Street, that's also part of that, so I'm sorry, that's already been covered. So we would go down to the next figure, figure 3M there, which is 4th to 5th Street. On that, you've got 40 trees in that median, 23 which are noted good, 14 are recommended for removal by the arborist. The meandering path in this case would impact 9 of the trees, 2 of them which are noted in fair condition, and the others are noted in good condition, but they're crepe myrtles, orchid trees, and tababuyas. The next figure covers 5th Street to 6th Street on the left side. And you have 21 trees, 14 of which are noted good by the arborist. And the tree canopy in this case solely consists of crepe myrtles and orchid trees. There are no large canopy trees on that block. The trail impact for an 8-foot meandering trail would be impacting 7 of the crepe myrtles and orchid trees, half of which are noted in fair condition. Shifting over to block 6 to 7, and that on the right side, you have 19 trees, 7 are noted as good, 5 are recommended for removal, and the remainder are fair. Of the 3 large canopy trees noted good or fair on this block, one is a large camphor tree, which is listed as an invasive species. The Land Development Code currently prohibits planting this species. You at your leisure can determine whether or not you would want it removed or not. But the path alignment for an 8-foot path would not negatively impact that tree. And what it does impact is 5 of the tababuyas and crepe myrtle trees, 4 of them which are in fair condition. Moving on to the block between 7th and 8th, you have 23 trees in this block, 3 which are noted good, 18 noted fair, and 2 recommended for removal. The path alignment impacts 7 of the crepe myrtle trees, and all but 1 of them are noted in fair condition. Shifting over to the other side of the figure, for block 8 to 9, you have a median consisting of 12 trees, 8 which are noted as good, 4 are recommended for removal. And of the 4 trees noted for removal, 3 were not present at the time of my site observation. And 5 trees noted good are oak trees, and the only large canopy trees on the block. The path alignment would impact 1 crepe myrtle tree. And then we would switch to the next block, which is 9th to 10th Street. There's no tree assessment in this area because there's not an existing median. An existing median would need to be constructed for the path. And it was desired to keep the parking in that section. So when we put in the median, we also adjusted the on-street parallel parking on the west side, which will impact 3 existing non-native trees, 1 large camphor and 2 large but juvenile Norfolk Island pines. And just to note, a Norfolk Island pine is typically not recommended as a street tree because as they mature, they have the ability to grow fruit cones, which can weigh between 10 and 15 pounds, and if they drop, it can be unpleasant. I've been hit with a 3-pound pine cone coming off of a tree, which hit my hard hat, and that was substantial enough. The path alignment in this case would be an 8-foot path. We can fit a 16-foot median, which would allow us to have an 8-foot planting area on the other side. And I recommend it on the west side just because you wouldn't have a backing condition from the angle parking that's on the east impacting any pedestrian traffic on that. And while there's other exhibits of a straight line alignment down the median, the focus was really for the meandering path. So it's in there for your pleasure to review. But if you have any questions, I'm available to answer them.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you for the update. I know this was part of my my issues. So, as you know, I wasn't a fan of the path being on Florida Avenue. I wanted it on Ohio. Really, a lot of it was because of it's a really nice street. It already has really nice trees. Ohio is right away to right away of pavement. I think the community on Ohio would welcome this path. I think Florida, I just don't think it's the right street personally. Do you have like a summary of the trees that are impacted, the large canopy trees that aren't recommended to be removed by the arborists that are impacted by the path? I mean, is there a summary?
In the case of this, the vast majority of the large canopy trees, which are oaks, magnolias, sycamore, and a maple, with an 8-foot path and the alignment that is shown on the exhibits, those should be able to remain. Obviously, once we get into the ground and determine what's actually happening underground, whether or not there's a problem that comes up at the time of construction, I cannot say. But really, the majority of the trees that are going to be impacted are pretty much all of your non-native flowering trees, your jacarandas, your orchid tree, your crepe myrtles, which are substantially, numbered in that area. And then you also have some tababoulias, both pink and yellow tabs in there. Most of those are all, like I said, non-native. They're fast growing, which means they're weak wood. But if you're looking to get more flowering trees back in there from an impact standpoint, it's easy enough to do it. But if you're trying to get tree canopy, you don't have a substantial amount of large canopy trees throughout that median area.
Yeah, my concern was when we had the master planning level document, it was a line on a piece of paper. I know how you build the sidewalk and you have to, cut the ground down 6 inches or 8 inches to build the foundation. I just am concerned we're going to lose more trees than we realize. I have heard that there are some old postcards of Florida Avenue that shows the trees that were in place back in the 50s. Is there any plan, I guess this is a question to the city manager, is there any plan to try to put it back to the historic plantings? Since we're going to be removing a lot of trees, it would be nice to kind of get it back to the historic planting. It's my first question. And then my second one is, on this section between 9th and 10th, to me it seems odd to bring the bike path into the center of an intersection. I'd just be worried people would miss the
Okay.
Why don't we put it on the west side of the road?
And as a clarification, which I didn't state, but in meeting with Parks and Rec, the current focus is to focus the trail as a pedestrian trail and to put the bikes out into the roadway area and not commingle them which is one of the reasons why also I went ahead and felt that going down to the 8-foot trail would be appropriate, because if you're not putting bicycles on there with pedestrians, an 8-foot multi-use trail is very adequate for, pedestrians jogging, skateboarders, and, rollerbladers.
That's surprising. I hadn't heard we were not including bikes till you just said that. So where are the bikes going?
Well, at this point in time, because the assessment was to see what the trail would do to the trees, we've had discussion as to whether or not, right now, with the expansion of the median, it would take the drive lanes to 13 feet wide, which is not sufficient to have a dedicated bike lane. It would be considered a shared use roadway for bikes and cars. You can sign it that way. There's signage that's typical for that. In order to go to an actual dedicated bike lane, you need a minimum 5-foot separation. So you would need to widen the exterior curb line out an additional 2 feet in order to gain a 10-foot travel lane plus a 5-foot dedicated bike lane.
Yeah, I think DOT standard is 7-foot buffered now.
Yes, it's I don't believe that it's a requirement, but it is encouraged to go up to that 7-foot.
So I guess I'll ask the other council members, did you know we were not including bicycles now?
Stephanie Holden, Parks and Recreation Director. So I just want to clarify when we say bicycle. So we're not talking about a 7 or 6-year-old or somebody casually riding a bike on a trail. We're talking about the bicyclists that, do their tours or whatever. I'm an avid runner, and runners or joggers and bikes of that speed do not mix. So we have to move them off of that 8-foot trail and provide them a safe place to ride.
I still think Ohio is the best street for this. But I have lost that battle, so
Yeah.
I guess that's the end of my comments.
So I would be interested, though, I have not seen the postcard or what Florida Ave looked like with the other trees, so if you could share that with me, but we'd be happy to look into that and see if we could get it back to the historical look.
I'm sure you can find it on eBay. The St. Cloud postcards are always neat there.
Councilmember Trace.
I think Richard might have it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Trace.
The crepe myrtles and the tababuyas, are they relocatable? And, will they live if you spend a couple bucks on relocating them?
Tababuyas, I would say no. Crepe myrtles, I've dug up crepe myrtles, set it in a parking lot for 3 days and planted it and had it, live. They're pretty resilient. Cost effective wise, you're talking about a manpower issue and everything else. Typically speaking, in my time down here in Florida, I do not see a tree relocation program for a lot of trees, including large canopy trees. So it tends to get more expensive than what the cost of putting a new one in place actually is.
And you can get the same size?
Going with the same size, I mean, you're typically doing that. There's just not enough, while there are people out there that have tree spades that you can come in and spade it and move it, it's just typically not cost effective for a tree that you can get in a reasonable size at a cost that's probably comparable to mobilizing that equipment.
Okay.
The other concern that I would have in this particular case is from a utility standpoint, since a lot of these trees are centrally located down the median, and for a good portion of that median, you also have your sanitary sewer running down the middle. I would really be conflicted using mechanical equipment to harvest trees out of there.
Gotcha, makes sense. And then will we have plantings as well down the median, or is that not included
Yes,
in the scope?
as part of the services that you all agreed to have us do, landscaping of that, irrigation and lighting, along with signage, was also included in this construction plan project.
Okay. What's still on the screen, the 9th to 10th?
Yes.
I don't know if that fully makes sense to me of having, I think you'll have an issue with cars backing out of angled parking. I don't know if that's enough room.
There is sufficient room for the movement, and from a auto turn standpoint, it does work.
Okay.
Your drive aisle width in that case is wide enough to function.
Okay.
But the reason that the sidewalk was
On that side.
projected onto the west was because you have an overhang condition off of a car backing up that you don't have on a car parallel parking on the other side. So for me, it's a safety issue to put the sidewalk on the side that's least likely to have a conflict.
Okay. And then On the bicycles on the street themselves, we'll have the share rows showing that.
Well, if the roadway stays at the 13-foot wide drive aisle, you would not stripe anything. You would sign it. If you wanted to spend the money to paint, the entire road green, you can do that. But that's, an expense that is not going to hold up long-term.
And
So
then-
if you actually want a dedicated lane, we would need to widen those drive aisles by pushing the curb over, which then has an impact to your stormwater system that's in place there. You do have curb inlets and whatnot in those areas.
Okay, and then you'll still need to assess, at least on that portion from Lakeshore down, stormwater impacts of blocking their yard drainage kind of coming into the.
As far as
into
for
street. Putting the sidewalk in and blocking their.
So you're talking there along Lakeshore to Cypress?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would, we would ensure that you have the proper drainage flowing in there and that we don't block things. Because I don't believe you have any structures in that. I believe it's actually sloped to drain into the roadway in that particular block. But we would assess that also when we get to engineering.
Okay, thank you.
We thank you, Mr. Clark, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Y'all have a good evening.
At this time, we'd like to recognize Police Chief Gauntlet.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mr. Sturgeon. I don't have a presentation tonight, more of a little bit of a reflection. One of the things I wanted to bring forward was to thank the council and the community for their ongoing support. When we see the Back the Blue signs out there in today's day and age, that means a lot to our staff and to the members of the police department that are here tonight. Their dedication and hard work and a lot of efforts have maintained our city and consistently has ranked in the top, often 10 and 20 overall as far as the safest cities in the state of Florida, which means something. Public safety is absolutely critical in this organization and certainly within every community. I've had the privilege of being in this business for 41 years, 12 of which have been as the police chief and also as a public safety administrator here in the city of St. Cloud. And today at 3 o'clock, I announced to my staff that it was my intention to retire December 31st of this year and to transition to a new administration. It has been an incredible journey. My wife, Margaret, is here tonight with me, supporting me, and she's had my back throughout this process. And in police work, we call it, we have your six. And she's had my six the entire time through all these many, many years of what we do for a living. It's been an honor and a pleasure, but I wanted to officially tell council and some of our staff members, as well as the community, that I am honored, but it is a new journey for she and I. And I look forward to December 31st and January the 1st, and we'll be passing the torch on to a very capable police chief to be selected. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you and thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank our city manager. City manager has requested to speak.
Does any council member like to speak first?
Yes, I want to.
Please, I'll wait. Thank you.
This is certainly a sad announcement for me, and I'm sure for our council and our city. I think, the innovations that you have made with our city that have been a standout in the state that has caused other agencies to come and look at what has happened here has been not only because of your team, but certainly reflects your leadership with your team. And I just want to thank you personally and certainly on behalf of our city for the incredible job that you have done leading our staff and developing the excellent team and leadership that we have here in the city of St. Cloud. Thank you so much for what you've done, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more accolades coming your way. Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. It's been great working with you the past couple of years that I've been on council, and wow, 41 years in the business. That's crazy. That's great. I just want to applaud you on raising the bar for your staff and your group, and I've just seen how much they've grown, and you've nurtured that team over the past couple of years. So I just want to applaud you. Thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So when you called me today, I was sad to hear that, but I'm excited for you for your next, challenges. I've appreciated the counsel that you've given me in my time up here, and your leadership, innovation, as was mentioned, has made us like the top-notch agency in the area in my mind. And I also want to thank your wife, because I know all the sacrifices that she's made as well throughout your tenure. It makes me sad. But thank you for your service.
Councilmember Askew.
Chief, you know how I feel about you and your wife. I mean, we are going to miss you. I mean, great for you, sad for us. But your team, I've never, 6.5 years up here, I've never heard one bad thing ever out of anybody's mouth from a citizens to your staff. Matter of fact, they always go out of their way to say what great things you're doing, and you've done tons of great things here. And I appreciate the leadership. I appreciate the leadership to me when I pick up the phone and call you and you set me straight a lot. So I really appreciate it. And I am truly going to miss you, not only as the chief of police, but as a friend. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. Pete, Chief Gauntlet, if you recall, about 8 years ago, you swore me in as the fire chief. And now I'm the city manager. Thank you for doing that. Not the fire chief, not the city manager. You're a trusted friend, a colleague. I've bounced a lot of things out of you. You're a trusted advisor. I'm going to miss your leadership. You've taught me about intelligence-led policing, your crime center, all the innovative things you've done. So, brother, I'm going to miss you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Our prayers will certainly be with you, and they'll certainly be with Margaret having to put up with you at home all the time.
She will be. The one thing that we will be doing over the next 2 months is we're going to make the rounds. We're going to make the rounds here in town, and certainly I will be talking to each and every one and making certain, because we have done some amazing innovations. And
Yes, we have. You have.
The talent in the room. I just happen to be the visionary. They happen to be the engine that actually drove the ship, and that's so critical for our organization. As we move forward into the decades to come, policing is getting tough. The politics are getting tougher. The media is getting even tougher than that. And the way we do business has got to be precise and smart. And we're going to continue to do that. So thank you for your support, and we'll be around. I'm going to be making the rounds and doing a lot of handshaking and saying goodbye to a lot of folks over the next few months before December gets here. But thank you, Fran, for your time, and thanks to the citizens for all their support. Thank you.
Thank you again, Chief. Okay. That brings us to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Dave Meissner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to address you for 3 minutes. 3 articles I'd like to bring up is one, thank you for the light at Budinger and Nolte. It's been 3 years to get it there. It was working first thing this morning. I do appreciate that, and I'm sure that the parents and the students also will appreciate it. The second item I have is I took a look at your consent agenda, and I'm a little surprised it's so lengthy. You have a lot of items in there I think the public should know about. Specialized consulting fees. You're spending a lot of money that you just want to vote in blanc instead of explaining what the money is for and what the citizens will get out of this. That brings up to the third issue. Don't forget the public safety. We want to make sure they get the pay raises so we don't lose the qualified people we have on our police and fire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Meissner. Michaela Wells.
Hello. I'm here regarding the last meeting. It was brought up that the city should look at the leachate issue again because of the decision in 2009 to stop it, and that it was rushed and not in the citizens' best interest. I would like to know what best interest you are talking about. Is this financial or health? Because I understand that part of your responsibility is the city's budget, but please not at the expense of our health. Nobody's going to care that the city has a full bank account in 10 years when the cancer cases start popping up. And I was here in 2009 doing all this for the meetings, and the leachate discussion was not a one-time deal. It was a lengthy process, several months, and during that time we had city employees from the treatment plant here to speak, among others, including an outside attorney, as well as a community scientist. And there was more than one vote on this issue, and it was decided multiple times to stay the course. So to me, it does not really make sense to say that you were rushed and make it seem like you didn't know what you were doing. To stop the leachate was decided because it was in the citizens' best interest to protect our health, and that is still the case today. So I'm wondering what has changed between 2019 and now. The landfill has been threatening the city since day one, and if we're talking about our health, then nothing has changed either. The leachate did not become less toxic. If anything, it is more toxic. In 2019, the coal ash just got here. Now it's been sitting there for 2 years through rain and heat and humidity and is fully integrated in the leachate. We have 600 million pounds of it sitting there. And the landfill is still accepting coal ash and other toxic trash, including 720 tons of contaminated soil from a jet fuel spill, as well as 2 years' worth of hazardous trash. And the other facts are still the same as they were 2 years ago as well. The city is not testing the leachate, so you don't know which contaminants are included in it and at what level. Leachate is highly polluting and toxic and includes high concentration of dissolved and suspended organic matter, inorganic chemicals, heavy metals, CODs, BODs, PFAs, blah, 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 and radionuclides. So you cannot treat something effectively and safely if you don't know what you're dealing with. You need to know the water chemistry to identify constituents of concern for treatment and the potential risk involved. A normal standard wastewater treatment cannot remove the worst poison from the leachate, because if that happens, what's left over is still dangerous when released back to the environment and to the community. And there are several other places that declined leachate as well for good reason, because they're either not able to treat it or they're not willing to take the risk. So St. Cloud must do its due diligence to make it safe if they want to deal with this.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Mike Lella.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Mike Lella, 2423 Region Way, Kissimmee, Florida. I'm speaking on the leachate as well. The purpose of me being here is for our group to be able to get in a back and forth discussion when you start discussing whether you want to bring back the leachate or not. So I know you have a big agenda today. I'm not looking for any discussion tonight, but we'll be sending out an email. My group will be sending out an email. We'll communicate. We'll send an email out to each one of you. But that's the purpose, is to, what Mikkel was talking about. She was part of our group. I think we were called the coal ash people. But, that what she was saying, it wasn't a quick decision. It was based on the vision of a possibility, because JED, when they accepted the coal ash, changed the game. So when they accepted the coal ash from Puerto Rico, so we need to be part of that discussion. So that's the purpose of me coming tonight. Okay, and I wanted to get it on record. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lella.
Thank you.
Has anyone else requested to speak during the consent agenda? Or to the citizen forum, rather? Anyone else? If not, we'll move to our consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. I'd like to remind the council that item T has been pulled. Are there any other items of concern from the council? Councilmember Matheny.
I'd like to pull U as an umbrella for a separate vote.
Anything else? Councilmember Trace.
I just have one comment on item I, which is the economic development, economic, financial, and marketing consulting services. Whenever there's a contract coming up for this is just adding them to our consultants list. Can we have that scope and fee schedule come back to us before it gets signed up? I don't need to vote on it separate. I just want to have that statement on the record. All right, thank you.
Would anyone in the audience like to comment on the consent agenda besides item U, which we will be pulling separately? If not, we will go down to item U.
I just want to vote on this one separately.
Okay. Lisa Klepper, you have requested to speak to item U, please.
Hi, Lisa Klepper, 908 Michigan, as well as 1752 up the road, both of them in St. Cloud. First, I want to start off by thanking, you guys did send out the people to look in the drainage. They haven't fixed it, but at least somebody was out there. So it's still full of water, but at least somebody has been out there. So I do want to thank you for that. The other thing I want to talk about with this is, and I haven't seen what they're proposing, I'm assuming they're going to show that to us today, but I just wanted to be sure that when they build all these homes that are going to be now all their backyards looking into my yard, if we could have maybe a privacy fence, if they could put some kind of a, fence so those people aren't all just peeping in my yard. And also maybe if, on that back row that all looks into my yard, that they're not all two-story homes so they can all peep into my yard. I mean, in the past, the only people that have been peeping into my yard have been cows. So, now we're set to have all those homes, which is depressing in and of itself. But, I would like to have that on the record if maybe we could do something like that. Also, again, I haven't seen what they're planning with the 69 homes that they're planning to put there. I'm hoping that it includes some type of green space with a playground for the kids so that, they're not getting into trouble. They have some place to go and something to do for this particular neighborhood. I know it's a smaller amount of homes, but those kids that move in there still deserve to have some place to play. That's it.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Klepper.
you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Trace.
Oh, sorry, that was on from earlier.
Okay. It brings us back to voting on item U.
Can we have the planner or whoever has got the documents, put them up and address Ms. Klepper's questions?
Yes. As far as questions, I only got the one question about the playground. The rest of them were requests that are not addressed in there, but we can convey those to the builder, if that helps. Would you like to, if you want to see them added, you'd have to make a motion of some sort.
So the land development code does not require any kind of buffer along the property line?
A buffer, yes. A fence, no.
A fence, a wall, anything like that?
No, it doesn't require a fence or a wall. But a buffer, yes.
I'd like to see that added, but I'm not voting for this item, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, Council. Sean Hendel, Hanson Walter and Associates. My client wouldn't have any problem adding a fence if that's a desire of council. If anything that we've stated in the past as we go through engineering design is not being met, then you'll see me up here with another plan. So we've committed to you before that we would design it, that we would not create large amounts of fill, we would not create concerns with the adjacent properties, and if the design ends up being that way, I will resubmit a PS and I'll be back up here. Okay, you have my commitment to that. But if you need a fence or a buffer along the existing properties, I don't think my client would have any issue with that, and we wouldn't have a problem with that being part of the motion.
And to answer your question, yes, there was a playground in there. I don't think we actually answered that question. Yes, there is a playground there.
All right. Do you have any other concerns? Mr. Manzares, can we just vote on this, or do I need a motion?
Well, you'll need a motion to include the condition that was offered by the applicant.
Could I entertain a motion for the adoption of item U with the conditions and the additions that Mr. Hendel just stated?
I would make a motion that we add the fence, at least a 6-foot fence on that. That's opaque. Thank you. Person who's not going to vote for it, but and definitely help out that neighbor and whatever else we need to do. But in that motion, would definitely have a fence.
Second.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, you please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
No.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
Brings us back to the remainder of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the adoption of items A through T or through S?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for Councilmember Trace, second from Councilmember Matheny for the adoption of items A through S. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Brings us to the item of public hearings. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 1?
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2021-12, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of plan unit development compatible with a public institutional future land use designation change adopted by ordinance number 2021-11 for approximately 24.65 acres identified as OUC Maintenance and Operations Facility located south and west of the intersection of U.S. Highway 192 and Hickory Tree Road, providing for entering the designation on the official zoning map, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation, and proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Good evening, Council. Jesse Anderson, Senior Planner. Before you, we have the St. Cloud Maintenance and Operations Facility for OUC. It's the concurrent planned unit development zoning for their last future land use case in our last City Council meeting. It also has a corresponding preliminary master plan as well as a final master plan. It's for 24.65 acres and is located south and west of the intersection of U.S. Highway 192 and Hickory Tree Road. The proposed future land use is public institutional with an existing zoning of agricultural development and conservation, industrial general, industrial 2, and highway business. The proposed zoning, as I mentioned, is planned unit development. The proposed uses are maintenance and operations facilities for OUC. It is compatible with the general development pattern in the area, and there are no adverse impacts on city facilities. Before you, we have a table that depicts the zoning, future land use, and existing land uses for the surrounding properties. To the north, we have a highway business commercial area. To the east, we have RS1 and a highway business area, which correspond with a low-density residential county and commercial city. And to the west, we have an I1 industrial general and I3 area, which are all city and county associated in the industrial context for future land use. And then lastly, to the south, we have an I-2 Industrial 2 city zoning district with a future land use of industrial as well. Before you is the map that depicts the zoning districts that surround the property, as well as the parcels in question today. And this map over here overlays the proposed site layout for the OUC property for the current phases that are proposed. It is consistent with the strategic plan goals of growth management and economic development, and DRC and staff recommend approval of Ordinance 2021-12. I apologize for the mistake on the screen, but it is for Ordinance 2021-12. And the Planning Commission also does recommend approval from their meeting on July 20th, 2021. Therefore, we request City Council to approve Ordinance 2021-12. I believe the applicant is here, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to this item? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Terry Torrens, Orlando Utilities Commission, 100 West Anderson Street. Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Just going to give you a couple of slides to take a peek at what we're proposing on this property, just to kind of give you a high-level look at the quality of the proposed facility that we're planning to do on the property, and kind of walk you through a little bit of what we've done to get us to where we are now. 2018, 2019, we began to purchase property in the area, and the idea behind all of that was to construct a joint use facility to actually house some city components as well. So within this facility, we're looking at bringing in your fleet and your warehouse facilities to commingle in with the OUC facilities. So this particular properties were bought with the intention of having enough space to be able to move your fleet and warehouse facilities over onto our property. As those plans develop, we'll be taking a look at that. As part of the process, we brought in engineering, design, and construction services with Jacobs Engineering, Hanson and Walter, as well as Ajax Construction. They're all here with me today, so if there's any questions that I can't answer, and there's probably a lot of those, the real team is here to answer those questions. In 2020, we met with the City of St. Cloud as well as OUC, and we had design charrettes to discuss what the needs were for both the city and for OUC. And now, 2021 and 2022, we're going through the approval process, getting our permits and approvals to be able to begin construction. The next slide here just is kind of a peek into, it's a rendering that's done interior to the building. It's actually outside, but one of the things reason why I really like this particular rendering is it really shows you the quality of work and just the investment in the community and the people that work in this facility. It's really designed as a healthy and safe campus. It has a separation of service vehicles from primary pedestrian circulation, and it promotes safety. One of the next slides you're going to see is there's an outdoor fitness loop, as well as a lot of windows and the ability to be able to look outside from inside, creating a very healthy campus for those people that actually work in the facility. This is really kind of a nice rendering that kind of gives you a big look at the whole campus as it's being built out. Some of the things that we wanted to make sure that you guys understood is it's planned to complement the community. It provides dual access points. It's aesthetically designed and is landscaped very well, as you can see going through these renderings. Some really important things to know about this facility is it has a lot of certifications. One of the things that we're doing is a net zero energy facility, as well as Fitwell certification, LEED certified, and a well and health safety certification. So it's going to be a very unique facility. It's designed with integration with the environment, with the community, and the people that are all working in there to be able to have a healthy and safe work environment. It integrates rooftop solar, electric vehicle charging stations, and it also has a rainwater harvesting system built in where we collect the rainwater and we use it to irrigate the landscape. We have one of the big buildings that we have in there is a 2-story warehouse building, and it's sustainably designed. one of the interesting features of that facility is that one wall on the western wall is entirely comprised of solar panels, basically turning the building into a power plant. So there's a lot of really interesting, very innovative features. It's optimized for low flow of goods and personnel movements. So with the post-COVID environment, we really did a lot, and I say we, not me, Jacobs, Dan Kirby and his staff are the ones that really kind of looked into the building design. But it's really designed for low touch points, and you'll see that as we go through some of the slides that I selected to bring to you today. A lot of the electrification of the transportation system you're going to see throughout how we looked at fleet. Really integrated a lot of natural daylight into the facility, and as we move through and construct the facility, it will end up having a net zero impact on the electric grid from that facility. From the fleet building, this is really, really fascinating stuff. Synthesis of technology and nature. As you can see above the doors, they have and I'm going to say this word wrong, it's clustery windows, I think. Did I get it right? And there's reflective floors. The concept is, because these spaces have to be outside, is try to use the best possible way to maximize light and airflow. So you can see there's oversized fans that have been included to promote air movement. The line of sight for the service bays and the hands-free path from the service bays to the locker room, again, reducing those touch points, which we all learned in a post-COVID environment, are things that we're wanting to try to look towards eliminating in the workplace. And also, it is going to be designed for the future of an electric vehicle fleet ready. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that you guys understood is that we really have done an exemplary job with the landscaping plan. It is above and beyond what's necessary, all Florida-friendly landscaping. And as you can see by the renderings, it really is going to take what is currently a couple of sites that have been abandoned, an old concrete facility that had a hazardous waste site on it that we had to clean up. The site has a significant amount of nuisance and exotic species that have actually impacted some of the native trees that are in there. So it is probably going to be, in my opinion, one of the nicest, what would be considered an industrial site that, as far as I've seen. So we wanted to bring some of these slides to show you today. And this last slide, which I just put in here to kind of house any questions, if you have any questions, but I really wanted to call attention to this particular picture. The top floor of that walkway connects all the buildings, but it also gives a walking path for exercise. But that vertical, and I don't know if I can point it out, but there's a water harvesting, a cistern right there. So when the rain does fall, it collects that, and that's how we use it to collect up all the rainwater to water the landscaping. So with that, that's a little bit of an overview. We're going to come back with the full presentation for you guys, but we just wanted to make sure that we included a little bit of this as we're going through the final reading of the PUD, just so that you had a good idea of what we were bringing to the community and OUC's commitment to our partnership and the future of our partnership. And with that, if you have any questions.
Before we open it up for the council questions, would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record. And then you'll need to fill out a request form before you leave. You got to step forward,
Come to the
please.
podium, please.
Got to come to the podium.
Name is Juan Morales, and I reside at 1528 Caterpillar Street. And my question is on all this construction. I know that, it was mentioned about all the wildlife, the nonsense wildlife and all that. What exactly, I see there's no concern about all the wildlife that's being removed with all this construction. And if within all this planning, if somebody's taking that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to that, Ms. Thornton?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to speak to that. I do know that there were some gopher tortoises that were identified on the site, which are required to be removed, and those have all been trapped and relocated to another site in where FWC has a ranch where they get relocated to. With that site and where it's located and the other things that have occurred that are on that site, there's probably not a significant amount of wildlife in terms of large wildlife that you would be, most concerned about moving. But definitely through the permitting process, we've addressed all of the wildlife that we know that are out there on the site.
Thank you. There was another hand. Would you please step forward, state your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, Lisa Klepper, 908 Michigan, 1752 up the road. And I just wanted to thank you. I think it's a beautiful design. This is what I would love to see more of, these types of things brought to the city instead of all of the massive housing. This is wonderful, beautiful. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Askew.
I guess question for Ms. Torrance. For the record, I've talked to Terry, even if I didn't want to. She came up to me and pitched her.
You can run, but you can't hide.
I was at Disney one time. It was, anyway. Some of the facts that you were sending me, like how many, the economic part I'd like to look in. I think the project looks beautiful. And
Yeah.
How many, like, jobs are we bringing to St. Cloud?
Yeah, sorry, I skipped over that part. I had actually intended to make a slide that was going to be part of this, but I got the data too late to be able to get it into the presentation. So I made notes and then I just got sidetracked. So in phase one of construction, our capital investment, just in phase one alone, and there's 3 phases, is $55 million investment in the community. Construction jobs are 257 jobs that'll either be created or retained. And when all 3 phases of this project are built out, which is going to be over time, probably the next 3 to 5 years, we anticipate that the actual facility will house 237 full-time employees.
Awesome. And I'm not sure if you thought of this or not, and you probably have better context at the school system than I do. This looks like this would be a great place for our school kids to go and to see what the future is basically being. So,
yeah, one of the things that I really do love about OUC and some of the things that we do is we really integrate into the school. And obviously now with COVID, things are a little bit different, but all the way from elementary school up into, we have college internships of people that actually our CEO started out as a college intern and he's now our CEO. So OUC really does love to push into the community and really share the intelligence and the information that we have with our staff, with the community. And it's something that we all take very seriously. And it's really quite interesting. Like when I first went to work at OUC, they were just graduating a bunch of college interns and they actually got to do real projects. And when I was in college, I did internships and most of it was file this or run this or do, but they actually gave, in the case of engineering, one of the engineering students actually created a program that we still use today with regard to our intermittency in terms of testing our lines to make sure if the power is going in and out, what's the frequency and how to identify where the problem is. It's called the Flizzer system. And so we really do, and actually there's bus parking that's going to be brought in here so that we can bring school buses in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it is every bit designed to be part of the community. OUC is a community partner, and we want to be seen as that, and we're spending the money to make sure that we have the facility to be able to do that.
Awesome, thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I know I gave y'all a hard time the last time you came up, so
Yeah, you
you knocked it out of the park. I like the renderings. I like the landscaping. I love the rain cistern. I love that, the whole one water thing. I was thinking when you said it, like, oh, can they pull the water out of their pond too? Can you?
Yep.
I know
we have floating solar
Sean
too.
can get that permitted. Was that solar on
Yep.
there? Because
We
I
have-
was like, what are those lines?
We have floating solar, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
so-
there's a solar sculpture.
Yeah, so I love all the stuff that you've done, and so thank you for bringing all
Of
the
course.
stuff back. So yeah,
Of course. Sometimes just having the information helps you make a better decision, doesn't it?
I mean sometimes.
I just want to say also, I talked with some of the OUC staff, and I listened to Terry talk also. And,
Sorry.
Did you have a choice?
I didn't have a choice. She has just really sold this project, and I certainly love the conceptual design that we have seen thus far. And, this is an incredible investment that will be made into our community.
Right.
And the employment potential for our city is huge, and so I'm really excited about this. Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. Great presentation, great project. My question I had was on the last time there was some discussion about the substation and the location of that. Do you guys have an update on where that'll
We
be?
don't have a substation planned on the property at this time.
Oh, okay.
So if we do put a substation in, it would probably be in adjacent parcels.
Okay.
But part of the conversation that you and I had about that was we don't want to put it on 192, and we won't put it on 192.
Perfect, thank you. And then last time, one of the neighbors got up and asked a question. Did we get that handled? I can't
Actually,
remember.
what was interesting is the neighbor, it was somebody from, that was another project, somebody got up and said they were having intermittency with their power at their house, and I went and spoke to them, and he was so upset about what was going on, he basically told me off and walked out. So I did try to solve the problem. I did try to get his address and a phone number, but he was not really wanting to talk to me at the moment. But I tried.
Thank you.
Mr. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I just want to talk a little bit about the partnership with OUC, and as they began the charrettes for this, it's our intention in the next 3 to 5 years to move our fleet over to the new OUC site. Our building there at the joint use facility is over 45 years old, and we just had to put a $450,000 roof on it, but it's only going to be for a couple years. That's part of the medical arts campus, and so that's going to be probably taken by some medical facility in the next couple years. So our intention is to work with OC to move that over there. And like I said, it's a 3 to 5 year build out, so we're going to start those discussions with the council pretty soon on that. So that's the plan right now, and we'll be giving more information as it comes available. Thank you. And I talk to Terry too all the time.
You just can't help it. We good?
I'd like to move the adoption of ordinance 2021-12. Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny. Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Brings us to items 2 and 3. Will you please read both of those into the record?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2021-47, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of high-density residential to approximately 31.26 acres, identified as Larson at Narcousie, located east of South Narcousie Road and north of Lillian Lee Road, providing for and amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation and proof of publication, applicability and effect, severability, copies on file, and effective date. First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2021-48, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud assigning a zoning district of PUD, planned unit development, compatible with a high-density residential future land use designation change adopted by ordinance number 2021-47 for approximately 31.26 acres identified as Larson at Narcousie, located east of South Narcousie Road and north of Lillian Lee Road, providing for and entering the designation on the official zoning map, providing for approval of the preliminary master plan, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation and proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Good evening, Council. Jesse Anderson, Senior Planner. Before you, we have the Larson at Narcousie Comprehensive Plan Amendment for approximately 31.26 acres of land located at 1651 South Narcousie Road. This is a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. For the background, the existing future land use is low-density residential, which allows for 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. The proposed future land use would be high-density residential, which allows for 10 to 18 dwelling units per acre. The high-density residential land use is consistent with comprehensive plan policies from the future land use element, as well as the housing element. For example, from the future land use element, we have policy 2.1.5, which is neighborhood commercial areas, and specifically uses that generate high traffic loads, such as residential areas, high-density residential areas, must be located adjacent to collector or arterial roads, which South Narcousie Road is a arterial road. And from the housing side, we also have that the city shall encourage a range of lots, sizes, and square footage options in the Land Development Code to allow for smaller single-family attached and detached, as well as a variety of multifamily product types. It is also consistent with the adopted master plans associated with the Envision St. Cloud Plan and the Narcosi Community Plan. It has no adverse impacts on facilities either. Before you have the future land use map, which depicts the low-density residential parcels in the middle, which are the subject parcels, with a low-density residential surrounding it from the county. It is to note that in the county, low-density residential does go up to 8 units per acre, eight dwelling units per acre, I apologize. And with that, it is a bit higher of a density than typically is associated with our low-density residential for the surrounding properties. It is consistent with the strategic plan goal of growth management, and DRC and staff do recommend approval of Ordinance 2021-47. On August 17th, 2021, the Planning Commission also did recommend approval of this ordinance. Therefore, we request that City Council approve Ordinance 2021-47. Moving on to the concurrent zoning map amendment, we have Larson at Narcosi, planned unit development. As you can see before you, this is the zoning map that depicts the parcels in question to be agricultural, with the surrounding area being depicted as well. The future land use is low-density residential, and as mentioned before, the proposed future land use will be high-density residential. The current zoning is agricultural, and the proposed zoning is residential planned unit development. There are no adverse impacts on facilities, again, either from this side of the project. Before you, you can see the surrounding zoning, future land use, and existing land uses. For the zoning, we have agricultural development and conservation to the north, which corresponds with a low-density residential in the county, which allows for up to 8 dwelling units per acre. Again, to the east is the same type of zoning district with that low-density residential designation. To the west, we have a planned unit development, which is low-density residential in the city. And finally, again, we have the agricultural and development and conservation zoning district with a corresponding low-density residential in the county. Before you is the preliminary master plan, which depicts the single-family townhomes, attached townhomes to the north, and multifamily apartments to the south along Narcosi Road. For the planned unit development, required parking currently is at 4.5 spaces per dwelling unit for single family. The proposed meets this requirement. For multifamily, the requirement is for 2.1 spaces per dwelling unit, and the proposed for the multifamily is 2.0 spaces per dwelling unit. There has been a parking study provided by the applicant for City Council's final decision. And this is consistent again with growth management strategic plan goals. And once again, we do recommend an approval of ordinance number 2021-48 with a condition. And specifically, that condition is that multifamily parking must meet the requirements set forth in the Land Development Code. The Planning Commission did also recommend approval on August 17th, 2021, with this same condition of multifamily parking meeting the requirements set forth in the Land Development Code. Therefore, we request that City Council approves ordinance number 2021-48 with the following conditions. Staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Would the applicant like to speak to this item or these items?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Becky Wilson, here on behalf of GSL, who has this property under contract. My address is 215 North Eola Drive. Thank you so much for pulling up our presentation. As you all may remember, we were here a few months ago with a project that included a portion that would be commercial, and we heard that there were some concerns about that, so we removed the 24,000 square feet of commercial and have made some other changes that I will go through. As you all know, this is in an area of the town or of the city and of the county that is continuing to attract new residents along with different types of uses in the area. One thing I also want to point out on this is, as you can see, much of the land is already cleared, and there are some significant clusters of really beautiful trees. And as we go through the site plan, that has actually been a high priority of ours, is to keep those trees and incorporate them as part of our open space. This also shows very well the Turtle Creek, which is to our west, and the significant buffer that they have on Narcosi. And we've also incorporated that into our design now. So the conceptual master plan that has changed since we were last here. As you can see, the areas of the open space incorporate those tree saves. To the south, as staff explained, we have the multifamily apartments, and previously those were much closer to Narcousie. We've also included a 50-foot buffer against Narcousie, along with a walking trail that connects through the property and around one of the ponds. There's also now an entrance feature with some of our water amenity pushed up against Narcousie also. And then those are the townhomes that you see to the north with their amenity in the center, along with cross-access further to the east for the development that may occur in the county, and then also to the south to get out to the road to the south. Just a little bit about some of the amenities in the open space. We have over 5 acres of open space. This includes dog parks, a multi-use trail, along with, again, that tree preservation that I mentioned. I'll just flip through some of the perspectives that we've worked on. This is within the townhome amenity. This is one of the roads through the townhome area adjacent to one of the parks. This is the trail system that runs between the townhomes and the multifamily. These are some of the architectural examples that we have. Since we were here last, we are now under contract with the multifamily developer Epic Residential. As you may know, they are based in Winter Park, and they are a luxury apartment home builder with over 38,000 units built. We also have moved forward with M&I Homes for the townhome development. And I'll get a little bit into their product, but they are proposing the product that they recently built in Winter Garden. So these are some of the concerns we heard the last time we were here, and this is just how we addressed those. We removed the commercial land. We've worked to meet the parking requirement for the townhomes. We've created the berm. We don't have the multifamily up against Narcousie, and again, got rid of the need for dedicated on-street parallel parking for the townhomes based on the rear-loaded townhome design. So this shows where it's up on the top was the original site plan with the townhomes in the rear, the multifamily up front, and we did not have a significant buffer along Narcousie. And then you can see the changes that we made based on the feedback that we heard. This just highlights the parking that we are providing, 4.5 parking spaces per townhome. These are rear-loaded townhomes, so we have 2-car garages along with space for 2 cars to park behind those, and then some on-street parallel parking. And then as staff mentioned, we are working under the code to request 2 parking spaces per unit instead of the 2.1 per unit, and that is an application that we make to the city manager that is still under consideration right now. This again just shows the 50-foot buffer. It's a close-up of that compared to what we previously had. And this again shows that we moved the multifamily back. This shows how the townhomes are rear loaded. And then as staff mentioned, this is consistent with the Envision St. Cloud requirements, including how the buffers were envisioned up and down Narcousie, along with meeting the Narcousie Community Plan. We had community meetings prior to coming to you all the first time. We also conducted more virtual community meetings with the revised plan. This is a little bit about, this just shows what the landscape buffers look like up and down Narcoossee and how we're going to mirror those. And then this shows really the distance between our proposal and the single-family homes at Turtle Creek in particular. The Narcoossee right-of-way is 150 feet. Then we have a 50-foot buffer along with the parking area, the drive aisles, so that between, and as you know, Turtle Creek also has a buffer on their side. So between the actual rear of someone's backyard, so their property line, to the first multifamily unit, it is 330 feet. I can also get into exactly what we're planting in that berm. There are some trees that are being saved along there, along with plantings of large trees, medium trees, small trees, and shrubs, so that it will look like this. As was mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Board unanimously approved this, and we're here tonight to answer any questions that you all may have. We have our entire team with us. And Mayor, if I could just have the opportunity, if there are any concerns from the citizens, that I just be able to address those concerns.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sturgeon, your light is on.
Yes, sir. Could I have the planner, JD, come up and address the parking issues regarding the city manager's authority on that?
Yes,
Can
you may.
address that?
Did you want the reduction, the ability for the reduction? Yes, there is an ability by city manager or designated determination, city manager or designee to determine whether or not the parking status has to meet the code at its maximum or whether or not there's a 20% waiver. It is up to a 20% waiver.
Mayor, if I could address that, and this is a PUD tonight, and I'd rather defer that to the city council, that
Okay.
decision. Thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll receive comments from the audience. Patrick Mall, if you'll please step up. Share your name and address.
I'm Patrick Mall. I'm from 4914 East Lake Vista Drive, St. Cloud, Florida. And I'm the president of the HOA for the East Lake Park Homeowners Association. We have a major concern about safety on Narcoossee Road. And looking at this particular development, it's going to dump approximately 1,000 cars onto Narcoossee every morning between 7 and 9 a.m. And what you dump onto Narcoossee has got to go someplace. And so that traffic has to be considered when you take on a plan like this. Narcoossee Road is not capable of handling that. If you talk to the police, the fire, and the EMTs, I'm sure they would be vehemently against it because of the number of calls and the number of life flights that have landed on Narcoossee just in the time that we've been there. There was another one the other night, landed on Narcoossee to take someone away. And all of this is because of the urban sprawl that's going on without consideration with police, fire, and support, as well as the road itself. There's not traffic signals on that road sufficient enough to handle that kind of traffic. So before we build communities of that size, I believe we need to look at the infrastructure and make adjustments to that infrastructure so that it can in fact handle that amount of traffic. It's near impossible to make a left-hand turn out of most of the communities along Narcoossee now. It's even becoming difficult to make a right-hand turn and get to a U-turn so that you can head north or south. So please take that into consideration before you approve such an endeavor as this. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay. Ron Herrick.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Board, the board. Thank you for hearing my voice tonight. My name is Ron.
Go ahead.
My name is Ron Herrick. I live in Millstream, 2774 Millstream. I'm the president of the HOA there. The association, we're off Narcoossee Road, just south of Boggy Creek. This is a very highly concentrated part of East St. Cloud and very highly congested every single day, but there's 6 to 7 hours a week during the weekday. You cannot go north or south due to school traffic. Due to the school, it really has a lot of children going back and forth and parents. Besides the fact right now at Majestic Oaks, there was some poor engineering and the road is single lane. Narcoossee Road is it's a real big bottleneck every day, starting about 6:30 through about 9:30. Then it starts again at 2:45 to 5:30 or 6 o'clock because of school and the people going north and south, going to and from their jobs. The traffic congestion and the car crashes keep the fire department on the go. Station 51 is the only station on Narcoossee Road in that particular area. Has a total of 3 paid firemen. There is no paramedic. There's no rescue squad there. Let alone all the children that are at Narcoossee Middle School, the middle school. There's 1,300 in elementary school. Besides, there's 1,300 in the back at the elementary school, or vice versa, I'm sorry. I was on the volunteer fire department in Narcoossee 15 years ago. We had almost 15 volunteers there that would respond to calls. Of course, Narcoossee was a much smaller town at that time. Now there's 8 or 10 times as much traffic with 3 paid men there. If anyone in distress needs rescue in our area, they have to depend on Orange County for mutual aid and/or send a rescue truck from the city of St. Cloud or farther south from the station at Deer Run. Please, let's try to lessen the growth until the county of Osceola has more infrastructure to support this growth. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Herrick. Betty Damke. Please state your name and address.
Betty Damke, 4776 Hidden Heights Trail, St. Cloud. Before I start on my presentation, I would just like to make a comment to the OUC facility we just heard about. In my opinion, that's probably one of the most positive elements that has happened to St. Cloud in many, many years. I can assure you, even though it's in our community, we will support this 100%. But as you know, I'm representing our Narcoossee Highway 15 corridor group, and that includes residents from both the county and the city. And tonight, Mr. Mayor, as I spoke with you yesterday, I'm going to be speaking for a lot of people, so I may need a couple more minutes just to cover everything.
We've already used up 45, so 45 seconds to go.
That didn't count. Give me a break. We understand that property owners have the right to sell their property, and the new owners have a right to purchase it and develop it, and that's the way it should be. But it should be that whatever transpires going forward should be compatible with what is existing, not detrimental. The community's responses, I sent out emails to my group, and the community's responses through those emails, phone calls, social media, and even conversations in the grocery store like at Disney were 100% against this development, and for many reasons that we'll get into just shortly. Last night I forwarded over to you, Mr. Mayor, as you suggested, over 70 emails in response to this. I can go home now and probably have another 50 or 70 that I could send to you, but they're all saying the same thing. It's 100% against this. And again, I'm just a messenger, so don't shoot me. This is a unique rural area, as you well know. It has been for many, many years, and hopefully we can continue to keep that. We're not so much against the development of the property as to what type of development, primarily the 3- and 4-story apartments. From Boggy Creek south all the way down to Kenansville, you will not find that type of structure. If you go north of Boggy Creek, yeah, it's apartment city. Look at it, you know. That's called Lake Nona. And for people that want to live in that type of Environment, that's great, that's great. But Buggy Creek South, no, please, keep us as we are. Again, we have no objections to the townhomes, but I just want to give you a little bit of
I
calculations.
want to give you another minute, so you can go fast.
I'm not going to be redundant on all the school impact and everything else that you've heard so many times and still has not been resolved. But assuming that this was approved and 2 cars per unit, I did some research. And according to the calculations for Center Lake, Jack Brike Ranch, Sunbridge, Harmony, and other developments along Hickory Tree, as well as East 92, those developments are already under construction, and if there are only 2 cars per household, we will be adding over 25,000 vehicles to Narcoossee Road on any single day. It cannot handle it. The same calculations hold true if you want to calculate it out for schools, for the emergency services, or for any of the other facilities that it impacts. Should you approve this, drainage on Lillian Lee is a major problem, and many residents there have contacted the city, and the problems have not been resolved. That needs to be looked into. Berms, according to what they have, look great, so we'll skip that.
Need to wrap it up. We have other people wanting to speak.
Yes. Overall, we're asking you to deny this proposal, and especially the apartments.
Thank you, Ms. Stamke. Karen Crane.
Hi. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Karen Crane, 702 Alabama Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm a longtime St. Cloud resident. I lived here when Narcoossee Road was 2 lanes with cows on one side in pastures and horse farms on the other side and open space as far as you can see. I'm concerned with the overbuilding and overcrowding in St. Cloud. When I drive down that area from coming out from Orlando North, and I get to that area and it's all open and it looks like the old part, and then you say, oh, I'm almost in St. Cloud. I feel better now. Putting up high rises is going to make us look like Orlando and not the St. Cloud everyone's used to. There are new subdivisions going up that have not even near completion. They're just starting. We don't know what the traffic is going to come into on Narcoossee Road with all those subdivisions. Thousands of homes, people still waiting to close in December and January. I know this personally. So our schools that we built for all the, all the homes going in that we had a couple of years ago, they're at full capacity. Are we going to go back to outdoor trailers like we had 10, 15 years ago? The drainage. The drainage is an issue. The land absorbs the water. I saw sidewalks just north of that area with the light rain today, and they were underwater. So if you continue down further, the road's going to be underwater, and it's really hard to drive on Narcoossee Road. It's flooding, and I experienced that in the commercial area further north. The let's see, I did that area. I guess that's it. The amount of people coming in, and it's just not part of what St. Cloud is when you come down that road on Narcoossee, and I'd like you to deny this project going in that area.
Thank you, Ms. Crane.
Thank you.
Kimberly Woodell.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Woodell. I live at 5261 Villa Rosa Avenue in St. Cloud. You're always going to hear somebody come up, they're going to talk about schools, they're going to talk about traffic, they are going to talk about the infrastructure. That's what you hear every time because St. Cloud is not built for this. It's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm a Florida native. I moved to the St. Cloud area 11 and a half years ago, and I built my home 5.5 years ago. I loved the feel. It doesn't have apartments. I wanted my kids to go to Narcoossee Elementary and Middle School, which they have, and they've done wonderfully there. But the school is overcrowded. That's the reality of it, and that's not your problem. That is the school district's problem. I understand that. But when you approve house after house after house, and you allow this many people to move in this quickly, the school district is not able to keep up, even with impact fees. There is no new school on the books to be built for a K-8 in this area in the next 2 years. Right now, we have already over 1,500 homes that are approved and waiting to be built off of Jack Brack, Jones, Cyrils, all that area. Those kids are going to go to that school, to Narcoossee Elementary and Narcoossee Middle. You think traffic's bad now? You're not even going to see it. My friend's son was killed on Narcoossee. There are 2 lights between Boggy Creek and 192. The city nor the county want to spend any money to put new lights in. They want the developers to do them, and they're waiting for it. High-density residential units are not appropriate for this area on Narcoossee. Absolutely not. You have people with 10 acres and cows next to an apartment building. It's not right. That is not what it's meant to be. Every single one of you grew up here, I'm sure, and that's not what it was, and it's not what you remember. I understand we have to go into the future, but you need to do it smart. You need to do it right. Don't start throwing in apartments because somebody wants to put them in there. We are one of the only areas without a Title I school. You understand what that means? Our students are above poverty level. This is one of the only areas in Osceola County, one of the only. And the reason that is because there are no high-density residential areas in this community. If you want that to change, it will. We don't have the police force to take care of them. We obviously don't have the fire to take care of them. My water pressure in the morning, I can barely take a shower. I have to take it at night. It's the only way I can do it. I have a lot of people that live in my home, and we all have to strategically do things because there's no infrastructure here. When we leave, where we park, what we do. So I think you need to seriously consider the fact that high density is not for us. Medium, low, okay. High, absolutely not. It's absolutely ridiculous to even begin to think that until everything else is in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Juan Morales.
Juan Morales, 1528 Caterpillar Street. I'm actually a resident of Turtle Creek, okay? I'd like to, can I yield my time to Ms. Betty Demkin?
Mayor, you typically do not do that.
No, it just opens up a can of worms. You say whatever you need to say.
Okay, well, I just didn't want to be redundant, and basically everything that everybody that has said before me, I second. And like myself, a lot of my neighbors as well. So I don't know the meetings. I didn't have the opportunity to assist to the meetings that were held in 2020 virtually, okay? But all these concerns that have been brought to you by now, schooling, fire department, police, those are all concerns that we have in Turtle Creek. Not just myself, but a lot of my neighbors. So please do reconsider this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Luz Mendez.
Hello, my name is Luz Mendez. I'm living 2040 Underwood Avenue, St. Cloud, and that's right on Narcoossee. So I heard many of the concerns from the other people that spoke before me, and I can say that they're all true. From the pressure, the water, from the problems with the traffic, the schools, everything is true. And I live right on Narcoossee, so I can hear all the cars when they crash, the ambulances, the police going through. It is a very dangerous road. And it is frustrating if you live anywhere in Narcoossee or off of Narcoossee, you know, when you're going to shop, you know, whether it's right there at Lake Nona, which is just about 10 minutes, or when you go anywhere and you're coming back home, the traffic is unbearable. It's unbearable. It's dangerous. And Narcoossee goes from the Orlando side, Orange County, and the Osceola side. We have all these apartment buildings on the Orange County side. And that is one thing that we were saying, well, thank God we don't have that in the Osceola side, in St. Cloud. But we do have a lot of developments already, a lot of houses being built. And now we find out that these apartment buildings are, they're trying to build these apartment buildings, and it's not fair. It is already so stressful to drive through that street, and besides all the other problems that already were brought up by the people that spoke before me. So I ask of you to deny this project for the high-density building. Houses, I understand, but we already have thousands of homes being built. We do not need apartment buildings on St. Cloud side in Narcoossee. We love to see the cows, to see this area that is still looks serene, and bringing apartment buildings to people that are not vested necessarily in the community. They're not going to be homeowners. They're not going to care like a homeowner will. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Klepper.
You guys probably know my address as well as I do. 908 Michigan and 1752 up the road. Lisa Klepper. I wanted to speak to this because it's kind of near and dear to my heart, the traffic on Narcoossee. And you may say, what the heck is she talking about? She's off a Nova Road. But the neighbor that sold the property next to me works down Narcoossee Road. It almost makes me cry to think about it. And when he spoke to me and told me why he sold his property was because the traffic on Narcoossee is so bad. He's like, the city is forcing me to move and to move somewhere else so that I can be on the other side, closer to Lake Nona. So that was why he sold to a developer. So really, the whole traffic on Narcoossee just is really, it gets to me when I hear it. And I feel sorry for the people that live there because I know he complained to me about it. So it bothers me. The other question that I did have as far as the street parking, because I was a little confused with when they were talking about street parking, and I'm not a fan of street parking, especially in a residential area. Is the street parking going to be the parallel parking with the lines, or are we just talking about it's a regular street and we're just doing the free-for-all with parking on the street? So that's kind of my question with that. And again, I think what everybody else was saying about apartments in St. Cloud and 4 stories high. I mean, what other buildings do we have in St. Cloud that are 4 stories high? Yeah, I don't know either. So anyway, just kind of sad to think of that coming. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who has anything new to add? If not, Ms. Wilson, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Mayor. Let me first start with the schools. And we have coordinated with the school board. I don't know if there's a representative here tonight. There was one at Planning and Zoning. And he agreed that there is a K-8 school that is currently under construction right now to open in the 23-24 school year. So that would work for us because we have a process to go through with you all, and then we have to construct. So before we would have any children, and as also was mentioned, we do have to pay the school impact fees. With regard to traffic, we were of course required to do a transportation impact analysis, and the roads that we impact with our development and based on the methodology we received from the city will operate at a level of service C, which is an acceptable level of service. Now, I know saying that doesn't make anyone in the crowd who has to drive on Narcoossee feel much better right now when I say that, but there is also a light going in up at Jack Brack, and of course, we are creating the connectivity to the east so that if in the future there's more development to the east, they're using these roads to come out, and there is a light warranted that one would be built there. And also, you know, part of the Envision St. Cloud and the Narcoossee community overlay, when I read it, wanted to do 2 things. First, as you're coming down Narcoossee, preserve the feeling that's there now, but knowing that it's not going to stay cows. We all live in the middle of a booming metropolitan right now, whether that's what it was like when we first moved here or not. So to keep that rural feel, that's why we are mirroring the setback. So when you drive along Narcoossee, you continue to get that large boulevard feeling and not having these buildings come close and interrupt that experience. The second was that there is a desire and a knowledge that the development is coming from the north, whether that's from the city into the county. And as you see this piece of property that the Larsons have been on a long time, that the development from St. Cloud to the west and from the south are also coming towards them. So there was a desire to create these different communities and these retail nodes that would then need some higher density to support them. So there is the retail node to the south of us. This was an area specifically called out for medium and high density residential where we are proposing it. There was a mention that allowing apartments would then create Title I schools. I very much disagree with that statement. In general, I don't believe that's true. But in particular, we asked Epic where their rents would start, and they believe that a monthly rent would start at $1,600 a month. And they, of course, make sure that people have jobs and can pay these rents, and that the townhomes would start around the $300K and go up. So this is a very high-end development that we are proposing, and it's because we're seeing people who want to have different options other than just home ownership. And maybe they want to sell their home and rent in a place that has these types of amenities. With regard to parking, we do have the on-street parking is purposely built on street so that you pull off of the street, park in a striped parking space. One last thing on public facilities. We do, and maybe not everybody knows this, but we do pay impact fees, which cover things such as fire, police, schools, and transportation. With the combination of the townhomes and the apartments, we would pay over $11 million in impact fees. That includes over $230,000 in fire impact fees also, if there's, for you all and the city manager to use those to address that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have and just really appreciate your attention tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So for the record, I did, the design team asked to meet with me to discuss the changes that they made to the plans. So I did have that meeting with them through a Zoom meeting. I'm not quite understanding. I feel like the last meeting was pretty clear about how we felt about this development, and I don't feel like it's really been interpreted. I think it's like, for some reason, one of the issues that we had, or that I brought up, was it was classified in the documents as a commercial development. So I had said, I think that's misleading because you only had 24,000 square feet of commercial, which is essentially like a Chick-fil-A. So, and then you piled all these homes in there. And then, so I think it's misleading to put on documents, paperwork people read and look at and call it commercial development because, if it was commercial, I'd be like, heck yeah, but it's not, it's houses. So then somehow that got interpreted that we didn't support commercial, which that's not the point I was making. I was saying I didn't feel like that was a fair classification of this development. So for me, when everybody went through the presentations, like nobody said, we're talking about 461 units. 461 units on 31 acres. I mean, like nobody said it in the, in that plane of terms. So the point that I made, I don't know if the planner can come back up and put the land use document back up. So the comment I made last time, and I believe Councilmember Askew agreed with me, is low-density residential seemed to be what was compatible in the area. I don't want to speak for you, Councilmember Askew, but I thought that was the point that we had made when you look to the north, the east, the south, and the west.
Yes, there is low density surrounding it. However, it's low density county, which again is a much higher density that we have in St. Cloud. It's up to 8 dwelling units per acre, which actually corresponds with our higher side of our medium density residential.
And they're proposing, what, 14 units to the acre?
14 units
Right.
per acre.
So when I had my meeting with the developers, very nice people, and I know they've got a job they're trying to do, but I kept getting told, like, but we could have done this, you know, like we should be lucky that it's only 14 because we could have done 18 or something like that. And I said, what you're assuming, I'm giving you high-density residential. I mean, that's what you're assuming. So for me, this is way too intense. I agree with the comments that everybody made. You know, if you look at this map, you see it's low density all around it. You know, the argument that the design team made to me was, well, everybody else's land use is going to change. Well, that's not necessarily true. I think it's way too intense. 461 units on 31 acres. It's not something I'm supporting.
Well, and I apologize. What we heard, well, first, we don't get to choose what category we fit into. So when we added commercial, we had to ask for the commercial designation. And what we heard was putting commercial, which was a red color kind of in the middle of these areas of residential, was not something that you all were willing to support at the time. And I'd just like to make the point that being compatible doesn't mean being the same. If being compatible meant being the same, you would just have one land use throughout an entire town. But you can use different good planning strategies to become compatible, and that's what we're doing. I didn't point out, but you all saw that there is a county pond to the north that we are connecting to create, again, along Narcoossee, this water feature along with the setbacks. And I appreciate that 14 units an acre is more than 8 units an acre, but again, we are creating connectivity back to those so that if they develop out at the 8 units an acre, what you're seeing is the density closer to this 150 feet of right-of-way, and then a gradual decrease as you move into the lower density residential. And then you can see to the south, just that there are a lot of different uses just to the south, so appreciate that.
Another point I wanted to make was the impact fees are cheaper for apartments and townhomes. That was one of the issues I had asked the city manager to look into that, so just keep that in mind. So the amount of impact fees that this is bringing in was mentioned, but it's a discounted impact fee compared to single-family residential.
Do we have any other questions or comments from council? Councilmember Askew.
Thank you. For the record, I did meet with the Larson folks on a Zoom meeting to try to get a grip of what we're building here. At first, I think I was really sort of against the whole project, and then don't want to get into details, but I spent some time in the hospital area and met a lot of the folks in there, and what they were telling me is like housing prices are so crazy, no one can buy a house here. So I was like, where do you live? We live in Lake Nona. So they come here and then they drive back. So it's like we don't really have. And then I'm like, where's the last time we built apartments in St. Cloud? I think it was Sawyer down on Old Canoe Creek Road, wasn't it?
Aren't apartments approved in Nolte, off of Nolte?
Right.
Stevens Plantation?
So what I'm getting at is like they're not for me. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm also you start to learn a little bit more about the younger generation, and they can't afford a house right now, especially now. And where they live, you ask a lot of them that come to our shop and things like that, and they all live in Lake Nona, but they work here. And so it's like we're not offering them a product that a young professional can take. And I'm sure there's probably even city staff that that make enough money that you're like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to stay here the rest of my life. I really can't afford a house at this point. I would like to get an apartment. We really don't offer that here. So I'm open to that idea. The other thing I asked about schools and schools being built, because it was brought up at least 3 or 4 times up here. I asked the school system and I said, well, you build a brand new school and you try to it gets to 100%. They automatically put portables on there right when they build the school because they know they're going to go over, but the state won't give them money until they hit 120%. So then our impact fees tend to kick in. Last month, we wrote a check to the school for $4.2 million in 1 month. Yeah, we are growing. And are we doing it smart? I sure hope we are doing it smart. We put a ton of things in place to make sure that we're doing that smart. I'm not a big fan of that many units there. I do like the idea that we need to offer a different product to people that, I'm not going to be living in there, but we need to offer a product for some of our citizens. 93% of our citizens leave St. Cloud every single day to work outside the city. I would love to see that commercial. I don't know how anybody got the idea that we didn't like commercial there, but so we need the product. I'm not sure if we need that amount of product. And I did during the Zoom meeting, somebody told me about the Winter Garden, that they built a product there. I zoomed in on Google Earth. Looks like a fantastic product. It is in their downtown though, so it's a little different to where we have it here, although they're close to Publix and things like that. And we don't know what's going to go around that other area in the future. It's all agriculture right now, so that's it for me.
Unless you want to
Trace, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. And for the record, I did have a Zoom call with the project team, had a call with Miss Demke and 400 emails from her. And then a letter that we have up here from, Karen Crane. I think she spoke as well. And then for the record, how do we need to get those emails over to staff, or it came through our email inbox? You guys have it for the record?
They came to your city email address? Yeah, then we just need to make sure that we have them placed in the record, that we can get those.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that all makes it a part of the record. Okay, I think most of my questions are for staff. We'll go with fire first. Come on down. I didn't ask the question yet, so you can wake up.
Chief Miller? I can answer it.
Oh, he's here, might as well.
You know, I just like the long walk around.
Yeah.
That was a long
thematic pause.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a comment about there's only 3 firefighters at Station 51 and no EMS and all that. I know it's not our station.
It's not our jurisdiction, so I struggle to speak for Chief Collier with Osceola County. What I can tell you is that station is staffed 24 hours a day with a paid engine crew. Whether it has 3 people one day or 4 the next, that I can't speak to. It is an ALS, Advanced Life Support Engine. All their county units are, to my knowledge, as are ours. As far as mutual aid goes, we have agreements in place to run mutual aid up there, as they come into the city to assist us when we have larger incidents.
Okay. One question I have on the development standards, maximum building height for single-family townhomes is 45 feet, and then multifamily apartments is 65 feet. Are there specific apparatus that we would need that we don't have to fight
In the
fires
future,
on?
we'd look at getting a tower truck to assist in covering that. However, I believe based on the plans, the structures would be required to be sprinklered. And based off of that, they're a much lower risk category with sprinkler product than there is with non-sprinkler product.
Okay, because we don't have any 4-story buildings in the city that
Correct.
I can think of off the top of my head.
Hotel when it's done.
That's
But
3, right?
Well, I think the loft area kind of makes it a 4.
Oh, okay.
But it's going to be sprinklered. So again, the risk factor when you're talking about sprinklered buildings, you look at your hotels, you look at your bigger apartment complexes, the risk factor is dramatically lower once it's sprinklered. We've done the side-by-side burns many, many times. All of you have seen it. Sprinklers save lives. That's why we're advocates for it. Just like fire prevention does, smoke alarms, the whole shebang. What the fire service's best job is trying to put ourselves out of business.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Well, can I ask my question while he's up here?
Oh, go for it.
Do we have any plans in the future to put a fire station near that area?
So we have met with developers and come up with quite a few properties. As you know, Tahoe was the next one up on the block. We have Rowan Bridge over by the Orange Avenue, Nolte Road corridor. We have Nora Tyson Road, where we have property designated for a station, and also there in Center Lake. So that area will be quite well covered in the future with fire stations as we grow and as we build them out.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Next question is for planning staff, whoever wants to go for that. Just for everyone's edification, I know Ms. Matheny brought up the density thing. Can you give us the ranges in our future land use element for low density, medium density, and high density residential?
Absolutely. The low density is 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. The medium density is 5 to 10, and the high density is 11 to 18, or over 10 to 18. Sorry.
Over 10 to 18. Okay. And then this project is a little over 14 units an acre, which falls into our HDR. But you were saying it was closer to the counties.
It would be
LDR?
close, relatively close to counties. What I was really saying is, in comparison to our low density residential compared to the county, we're only half of what the county's density is, so it would correspond quite higher, as well as with the amount of low density residential area around the parcels in question, it could create a lot more urban sprawl, whereas the concentration of development on an arterial road, not only does it enhance the potential traffic situation that might bolster out when future development comes through, we also have it corresponding with our comprehensive plan from the future land use and housing elements.
Perfect. Thank you. On the parking side of things, with townhomes, I'm fine with 3.5 units per acre. I think we've seen multiple studies that have shown, I think it's only in the 2s that people actually utilize, because if you have that extra parking, the garage becomes the junk storage, and then the street becomes the parking. And then 2 units per acre, I'm personally fine with. I don't remember what the request was.
It was for 2 units, where the requirement's 2.1.
2.1, okay. On the traffic side of things, I will agree, Narcoossee, I'm surprised no one mentioned Boggy Creek, with the schools that opened up on Boggy Creek, just creating a nightmare there. It's my personal belief, schools should not be on arterial roads, whether they be charter schools, whether they be public schools. It's just avenue for disaster, and especially now with, I feel like double the parents are now dropping off their kids due to COVID and masking for buses and all that, and it's challenging to get around during that. The TIA, at what point in the process does the TIA
It will come through for this project at the, can't think of the term right now, not the subdivision construction plans, right before that, so the preliminary subdivision plans. Oh, it comes with the final master plan? Oh, I apologize, final master plan.
Okay.
Yeah, you are correct on that. I was thinking this was OUC, so it was coming through with the FMP as well, but yes, they're correct. At the final master plan phase is when we do our initial traffic study, and then we continue to look at that throughout the process when they go to each phase through the subdivision process.
Okay, so we don't have any transportation analysis whenever we go through a land use change or a zoning change?
No,
Typically?
only when we get to the final master plan stage for a PUD, plan unit development.
Okay, I mean, not to derail this, but I think that's something we should look at in the future of if we have a change like this, so it's low density residential, max 4 units an acre, we're going up to 18, that's something that I feel like on a land use side of things should have some sort of transportation analysis.
The applicant just re-informed me, and I did let this slip from my mind, but they actually have submitted a preliminary traffic analysis as well, so we do have that on record too.
Okay. It just wasn't a part of our backup.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
So the site plan itself is a world better than the last one. I mean, the last one had, in my mind, no regard for any of the surrounding area, any of the view shed that Narcoossee has created. I mean, Turtle Creek, the way that they did the buffering. So this is a whole lot better. I guess the big discussion is going to be apartments or no apartments, right? It seems like everyone that spoke doesn't want apartments, but personally, I'm blessed to be able to live in my own house. But for a good portion of my 20s, I mean, you lived in an apartment. I mean, that's just what you did when you were growing up, and you want to live close to where you work and where you hang out, and there is a need in our community for multifamily for rentals, even if it's single-family rentals. I know it seems like every house that comes up gets gobbled up by someone that, you know, I'll see it for sale, and then a month later I'll see it for rent because an investor bought it to rent it out. So there's definitely a need for rentals in our community. With respect to the density conversation, we do need a transition of densities when we get from commercial nodes, then you go towards residential that has higher density than medium and then low. This is an area that just, for whatever reason, when this beginning part of the corridor developed, it just didn't have any high density residential on it. We did R1B, it looks like, you know, for that first neighborhood, and then just it doesn't transition right from the commercial node by the Publix, Winn-Dixie, all of that. So it's just kind of some of the mistakes of the past of our comprehensive planning that hopefully we can fix in the future as we're going through our comprehensive plan and our future land use update. Is this an area, I know we haven't gone through that process yet and we have a whole bunch to go through, but as we do the land use update, is this an area that we would have put high-density residential?
This would be an area that does correspond well with high-density residential because of its nature to economic opportunity zones such as to the south as well as to the north. You have the access to, obviously, retail such as Publix and so forth. It's actually entitled to be employment nodes, so that would potentially capture some of that traffic both to the north and to the south beyond going to Lake Nona or using it southwards. So those are ideal situations to actually be compatible with the apartment situation. In addition to that, the overall nature of the city does have a policy, if you don't mind me to read it real quick, for housing, which does state that the city shall continue to provide adequate land designated for residential land uses in a wide variety of housing types and processes to meet the needs of the existing and projected residents, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, disability, or other handicap, familial status, marital status, ancestry, national origin, ethnic background, creed, age, status, with regard to public assistance or income level. So I just do want to make sure that we are considering all things when we do talk about these types of developments and whether it is for the benefit of the city.
Thank you. And a couple of things I like when the community gets to engage in items like this. So we did hear some issues of water pressure. I don't know if Marjorie is here and she can talk to whoever it was that was having the water pressure issues. And then the drainage on Lily and Lee, I heard of that issue as well. So if we could have staff look into that. But that's kind of my comments from here. My biggest thing is, density needs to be in the place that density needs to be, but then also building heights and compatibility with kind of the surrounding area is kind of my last food for thought.
Well, I've certainly heard all of the concerns, and I'm sure that's a concern of everyone here on this council when it comes to traffic and so on. I do disagree that we don't need apartments in our area. We've heard that that's a huge issue. We do need apartments. Not everyone can afford to buy a home. And you know who's moving to this area? Our children and our grandchildren. And most of them can't afford to buy a home, so you know what they do? They move in with you guys or us guys until they can afford to either find a place that they can rent, which is virtually non-existent here in the St. Cloud area. So they stay with us until they can either buy a home that they can't afford. And can't tell you the young people I know that have bought homes because they wanted to get into something. There was no rental available. And so now they're just strapped to the gills trying to pay a mortgage that really has them strapped. What's also interesting about new growth patterns, when you read what's happening in the future in the building industry, so many of our children and our grandchildren, they love apartment life. They certainly love, they're moving into them by the droves because they like that kind of life. They don't want to have to cut the grass. They don't have to take care of maintaining the homes. It's certainly a huge need. I'm certainly concerned about the density of this particular set of apartments, but I certainly think it's a huge need that we have. I love the townhomes, at least ones that are being proposed in pictures that we saw. I do believe that we need to provide the parking that certainly is demanded by the city and recommended by our staff. So I kind of got mixed emotions on this. I'm really struggling, but I certainly think it's a needed product. Mr. Manzares.
And just I'll remind the council that this is first reading and introduction of these items tonight, and we've already heard a couple issues that I think the council would like some more information on. Mr. Trace mentioned the preliminary traffic analysis. Certainly that could be provided before there, if you are to move this forward before the final adoption of this, so you can see that, as well as maybe some more information on the parking, if that's something that the council would like to see.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion?
I think some of it was density as well.
Okay. Well,
So do I have a motion?
So I have a question to break the silence. What density do you feel is right for this property? For this area, for this piece of property? What happened, well, I guess, what's the plan on Lilly and Lee? That there's a piece between this and Lilly and Lee. I imagine at some point, especially with the development happening east on Lilly and Lee, that'll need to be a light at some point, right? So does that become commercial, then it, kind of builds its density down until you hit Haywood Ruffin, which is 1 unit. I think they each have 2, 3 unit, 5 unit, or 5 acre ranchettes. So is that the transition to density? I think 15 is a little high for this area. I don't know what the right number is. But the bigger thing for me is 4-story product when I don't think we're set up or ready to do that. So I don't know what this would look like if it goes down to 3-story. That doesn't stop the debate of multifamily or no multifamily. But just kind of want to throw that out there.
Yeah, great.
So how do we move forward? Don't make a motion. It's going to die for lack of a motion, though.
I guess I'm just throwing some blue sky ideas out here. I'm not sure if that parcel of land that you brought forward before that's on Lilly and Lee, is that part of your guys' parcel as well, or is that part of the Larson's project person?
It is not part of our parcel. I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm telling you what I think some property is going to go, that you all eventually make the decision on. We believe, as Councilmember Trace mentioned, that will likely be commercial. And what I'd just like to ask, and as the city attorney pointed out, tonight is a first reading. We understand that we need, to be passed on second reading also. And so instead of pulling, numbers that we don't know if they work and you all maybe don't know if they work, I just ask if we could have a passage on first reading. I've taken notes. I understand what you all would like to see come back. If we messed up last time on not hearing the concerns, we've definitely heard the density concern, and we'd like to just be able to work with your staff and address those at second reading.
So is there a way, I think I'm with Mr. Trace over here. I don't know if we're ready for a 4-story unit. Is there a way to take a look at your units and say, we're going to go 3 stories, and how would that, I know it's going to come to costs and things like that. And before I even ask you that, is that something that council would be willing to accept? I don't know how many units that would be, but the height thing is a challenge for me because I'm not sure we're going to be able to handle that. And the density just seems Hi, and I didn't realize that, and thank you, Ms. Matheny, for bringing that up. I mean, I tried to add all the units up, but it just really, you couldn't really do it. So is there a way that we can lower that density without, hurting the project, I guess? I mean, the project's gonna get hurt if it doesn't get passed anyway, so, I'm just throwing it out there. I guess I'm throwing it out there to the council. If they lowered the units down to 3-story, and I'm sure the developer will let us know if that's a go or a no-go, but I'm still afraid, it's just, I like the idea of apartments just because of, I think we truly need it, but I don't think that type of density, we're not Lake Nona, and I'm not sure if the road can handle it. I would have loved to have seen the traffic analysis as well, but I'm asking council, do you think that going to a 3-story unit would, are we just gonna waste their time and pass it today and then they'll come back and we'll just deny it? Or do you think that, do you think a 3-story unit would, I don't know what that
I
would
would
be.
certainly be more amenable to passing that.
Mayor, may I add that 4 stories are very important to us and to our partner. And if you look at the new apartments that are being built in other communities, they're predominantly 4 stories, and they're 4 stories with interior corridors that are air-conditioned. 4 stories also requires elevators, so you have better convenience and accessibility for people who have, maybe can't walk up 3 flights of stairs. So I understand the concern that 4 stories seems high in Kissimmee, but really that's what drives the higher end product is the 4 stories. I think in our, as Councilmember Trace pointed out, we requested 65 feet. I'm pretty sure we can come down to 60 feet on that. I mean, that's within those 4 stories, so we can work on that type of height and the density. But the 4-story product is important to us, and like I said, I think really drives a better product.
For me, the issue is the density. So are we done?
Yeah, I can't.
Can I make another comment? Had a minute left.
And my client just let me know that we can agree, instead of 320 apartment units, to go down to 300 units to address the density concern.
You do have to take some action, Ms.
Yeah.
Matheny, yes.
Motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? Motion to deny fails for lack of a second. Well, I make a motion that we approve the first reading, but you've heard all of the concerns. This has got to come back to us again. And you're going to have to seriously address some of the concerns that we've had. With that, I make a motion for the adoption, and that we ask them to work with the city staff to address the concerns that we have raised here today. Do I have a second?
Second for conversation. Is there, you said something about density. Is there a density you'd like to hit? Is there a unit count? I mean, you seem like you're 4 apartments, so what does that look like, I guess? There's not more conversation on.
I guess we just have to sit down with the staff and get our head around it better.
Okay. Does the applicant have enough feedback? Okay.
Do you have enough to work on?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
And this is for ordinance number 2021-47.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm getting way behind. This is for ordinance number 2021-47. We have a motion from the mayor, a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Trace?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
No.
Councilmember Askew,
Yes this time.
Mayor Blackwell.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1.
I make a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 2021-48 with the same caveats that we attached to the first motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Matheny?
No.
Councilmember Askew,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trace,
Yes.
Mayor Blackwell.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thank you. And it passes.
Thank you.
You've got some homework to do.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 4?
First reading and introduction for
Could I
ordinance.
stop just a second? I need to offer someone an apology. Please forgive me. Your request to address the City Council, Shirley Hood, was at the end of my stack. It got misplaced. And you had requested to speak to item U that's already gone by. You had an opportunity to speak. Will you forgive me for not calling your name when you had requested an opportunity to speak? Okay, thank you. I apologize so much. I didn't mean to, I didn't do that. If you want to come up and say something, I'll give you that opportunity. Thank you very much. Forgive me. Now, if you'll read item number 4.
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2021-51, an ordinance of the City of St. Cloud amending the City of St. Cloud General Employees Retirement System, amending Section 6, benefits, amounts, and eligibility, amending Section 7, pre-retirement death, amending Section 10, optional forms of benefits, amending Section 15, minimum distribution of benefits, amending Section 27, reemployment after retirement, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Mimi Tran, Human Resources Director. This ordinance 2021-51 relates to the changes by the IRS to the IRC codes. For the first Section 6 for benefits, amounts, and eligibility, this is a request to amend Sections 6, 7, 10, and 15. The changes for the required minimum distribution is to make changes from ages for their required minimum distribution from 70 and a half to age 72, so that was a requirement. And then Section 27 relating to the reemployment after retirement, that is for a reduction in age from 62 to 59 and a half. And this is also an IRC change. That section provides that anyone that has normal or early retirees, they can be reemployed by the city and they may continue to receive their benefits when they reach that age. There is no cost for this change, therefore, city staff does recommend the approval of this amendment.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, could we have a discussion or motion by council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny. We have a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace,
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Could we have a reading of item number 5?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2021-52, an ordinance of the City of St. Cloud amending Chapter 32, Personnel, Article 3, Retirement Plan and Trust for Firefighters and Police Officers, deleting Section 32 through 63, Investment of Fund Assets of the Code of Ordinance of the City of St. Cloud, further amending the City of St. Cloud Police Officers and Firefighters Retirement System adopted by the Ordinance 2006-125 as subsequently amended by amending Section 6, Benefit Amounts and Eligibility, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. This is in reference to section 2021-52 for the police and fire pension. The first section that they're requesting to amend is section 32-63, mainly because the language is inconsistent with the investment authority that's contained in the plan, and that it should just be removed for clarity. And this issue was previously brought up, and now they're just making requests to have it removed from the ordinance. And then the second request is for section 6, is to make changes to the benefit amounts and eligibility. And in this request, it is to provide for a cost of living adjustment, and it's for an increase of 2%. And the request is to retroactive until for 10/1 of 2020. Again, this is a one-time request, and the cost is $42,000. And staff is recommending approval for this. However, we are requesting that the approval is for 10/1 of 2021.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? We'll have discussion and/or motion by council.
Motion to approve effective 10/1/2021.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Athenia, second by Councilmember Askew. Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0, sorry.
Thank you. Could you please read item number 6?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2021-57, an ordinance of the City of St. Cloud, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, closing, vacating, and abandoning the right-of-way located east of Whistler Court and north of 10th Street, specifically described in the body of this ordinance, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Good evening, Council. Stephen White, Associate Planner, Community Development. The project before you tonight is Preserve at Lakeside and the abandonment of the right-of-way that splits the parcel. The subject property is located east of Whistler Court and north of 10th Street. The applicant is requesting the abandonment of the right-of-way to construct 10 single-family residences. The right-of-way has not been improved and will no longer be needed once development begins. The applicant would like the unused right-of-way to be abandoned prior to the property being platted. Section 5.5.4.c of the Land Development Codes provides for reviews of proposals to abandon easements and right-of-way. Review considerations specified by the Land Development Code include impact of the following: the City of St. Cloud, the immediate neighborhood and/or adjacent areas, the property owners immediately adjacent to the affected right-of-way or easements, and any utility providers or governmental agencies having a possible need for the right-of-way or easement. And I'd like for the record to show that no objections were received from any governmental or utility agencies for this project. This plan meets the strategic plan goals of growth management and economic development for the City of St. Cloud. And DRC staff recommended approval, and we are requesting City Council approval for the ordinance 2021-57. Staff's available for questions, and I believe the applicant's here as well.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to this?
Good evening. My name is Greg Crawford with Florida Engineering Group at 5127 South Orange Avenue, Suite 200, Orlando, Florida. And I'm here representing the owner with regards to the abandonment on the project. We're going before you to abandon the right-of-way on this one because we are looking to try to get a PSP approved for a 10-lot subdivision as mentioned. And so I'm able to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this? If not, we'll have questions or discussion or motion by council, and we'll recognize Councilmember Atheny.
Thank you. I like to see all these fresh new faces from the planning department. Can you pull back up that site plan that you had up there? So I know this came before us and we gave comments regarding like the lift station being right up against the right of way. You know, if 10th Street's ever widened, that's going to be an issue. Like, I see the site plan, it's still, wasn't there one that had the site plan on it? Is there one that has?
No, on this one.
Or is in our packet or something? But, you know, the lift station is still right up. I mean, so where is that in the approval process? You said you're doing a PSP, but I thought we gave those comments when it came before us, but it's still reflected on the plan.
The last time the PSP, it was on the agenda, I believe, for the 2021 meeting, and it was pulled, I believe, by the applicants prior to that meeting, and it was put on hold until this was completed.
Okay. So we haven't like just skipped over our comments.
No. They wanted to
whatever.
push through with this prior to doing the PSP.
Okay. So I have a question for my fellow council members. So, access to lakes. You know, within Osceola County, there's limited public access to the lakes, you know? And so I know this is an unopened paper right of way, but it is a right of way, and we do have, you know, if we could open this up to public access. So, you know, if we vacate this, that potential access goes away. I just, you know, we had that nice presentation from Fish and Wildlife today, and I wanted to ask them some questions, but it wasn't really, I guess we all just kind of, you know, wasn't really a question and answer period. They just did the presentation. But I wanted to say, how do we get more of that in St. Cloud? Like, how do we get our ponds improved, and how do we get Lake Runnymede cleaned up, and how do we get, you know, we've got a great boating and fishing community here in Osceola County, but the lion's share of his presentation was Orlando. So, you know, that kind of feeds into this. You know, I just want to see how the other council members feel is, you know, this could potentially be a trail. I know staff is saying that it's not on any plan that we have, but I just want to caution, these are limited within Osceola County. And, you know, when we let it go, we let it go. Nobody ever gives us things back. So just kind of the thought process with that.
If I may, with it, right now, if we could go to, you got the actual sketch here? Oh, no? Okay. Within the packet, there's actually a sketch that shows the right-of-way that's being vacated on that. Right now, it's only a 30-foot right-of-way. So from at least a road standpoint, then it's really going to be substandard to any kind of county or St. Cloud requirements for doing that for it. But also the other thing was basically, as you can see from the aerial map, that really going up to Lake Runnymede is that really any portion that's really from a lake standpoint for deep water fishing and such is really actually going to be further north from here, where the access that we'd get from this road is really from more of a wetland aspect of it. We do have wetlands in that area. But there's also, if you look at the sketch itself, there's actually, you got East Lake, or East 10th Avenue, that's there. There's actually an old abandoned right-of-way that's actually owned by the current property owner that actually separates the East 10th Avenue from this actual right-of-way. So really, there's no connection right now actually to public right-of-way, except for crossing my client's property itself in order to get there. So there is a disconnect there with regards to being able to just be able to get public access from East 10th over through the right-of-way up to the lake as of this time right now. On there. And I do know, with just one last thing on it, this property here actually had previously been approved for a subdivision that actually had done away with it. It just, the plat was never recorded on it, and so therefore it didn't vacate that land back at the time it was done. So there was already one approval for this one to actually basically do away with that road also at that time.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a road. I mean, it could be a trail. It could be a sidewalk. It could be, you know, a walking path. This is something I know that is looked at with a lot of scrutiny in other agencies because of its lake access. I understand that this isn't the most desirable piece right here based on this aerial right now, but we've also been petitioning FWC to clean up Lake Runnymede. You know, just because it looks like this now doesn't mean it always would look like this. You go back in time, it used to look a lot nicer. So just wanted to kind of gauge y'all's thoughts on that.
I like the idea. I know that area. It's going to be a long time before that's going to be a nice looking area. I hope that FWC cleans that up. But you got me thinking, definitely there is some other spots we can probably get, but I'm not sure about this one, but I like where you're going though.
Yeah, just I think we got to be real cautious because we're not going to get them back.
Right.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Any other comment?
Different question on the right-of-way. The proposed development, will it be dedicating the right-of-way along 10th Street? Whatever was necessary before, there was a discussion before about whatever the width was.
The width right now is actually right around 60 feet, and we've had discussions with Osceola County, and that right-of-way is already within their frame road network, that's the right-of-way, so no additional right-of-way would be required. One thing that we have worked on since the previous PSP that you've done, and it's actually been submitted for that, hopefully we can get approved on the next reading there if we got everything taken care of with the city, is that in working with Osceola County, is that we're not able to get the 10 driveway connections directly to the roadway. So we do have a small, what would be really a private drive that's actually going to go there. So each one of those driveways would actually connect to basically a frontage driveway that'll actually only have 2 access points. But there is no additional right-of-way being required to be given to Osceola County. They've already got enough right-of-way within there for the framework network that they have planned for this area.
Okay, and does that meet our understanding of what is going on 10th Street, right-of-way wise? I thought
I like where
that-
you're going. Are you thinking like if that equates to 5 feet of additional right of way, whatever this dimension is?
I honestly thought that the prior site plan had right-of-way dedication because we needed it.
Like in the sidewalk, I thought this was tight up here. I'm sorry.
There
I'll quit
was
talking
an
over your
easement
stuff.
along the front that actually was for utility easement that actually was running through there for the sanitary that was going to run on the front of those lots on it. It's now a little bit separate because of that shared driveway on it, but we hadn't proposed any right-of-way giving. It was really just an easement that was going to be for the sewer to get over to where the lift station was, and then, but no right-of-way.
Okay, and then I know we're talking about the abandonment of the right-of-way, but on your proposed 10 lots, there will be its own lift station for that?
It is a lift station,
It
yeah.
is right up front.
Well,
on the
that's
plan
not my
we got.
bigger concern of, in 20 years when that has to be replaced, there's only 10 houses going to it. I mean, it's just one of those of, I had a big gripe about a lot of the stuff east of Hickory Tree Road on 192 of every single community had its own lift station just because they came in at different times.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 5 lift stations that we have to maintain that all of it could have been diverted because of the way the grading worked out to 1.
I will say it's a private lift station. The city did not want this lift station, so it'll
Okay.
be done by the HOA.
Well, it just seems expensive for you guys too. Maybe put it in a way that the neighboring property, whichever side, can tie into that as well, and they figure out an agreement. But
But yeah,
seems
it is a
expensive.
private lift station.
So our staff and county staff is fine with the 60 feet or 66 feet, whatever you said, of right-of-way on 10th Street? I guess the county didn't object, right?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Well, I'm certainly amenable to and in agreement with what Ms. Matheny is, the point she's making. I'm just not so sure this is, would ever work out to that in this area. It's such a, what I know about that part of running meat, I'm not sure if that would ever happen, but I understand your point. Councilmember Matheny.
When you said the county didn't make objection, does that mean they were silent or they said, we don't need it?
Hi, good evening, Melissa Dunklin, Planning and Zoning Manager. I don't believe that we received any comments on it at all. I will remind you all that we are currently going, that 10th Street is currently under a review, and they're planning on doing improvements to 10th Street, the 10th Street corridor study.
For me then, I mean, and I don't know how we do this. Is this a first reading or is this?
First reading.
Okay. I would like to get formal response from Osceola County before we move forward, because it could be that they just didn't get to it, they missed the email, like whatever. I would like to get that before, the second reading. I'll move, I mean.
Might I just add one thing? I will let you know is that even though they may not have given a formal response on here, we've actually already submitted to Osceola County for a site development plan for the work that's actually for the driveway connections and also the utility connections in there. And they have not requested any right-of-way on those requests. So they have actually reviewed our plan so far. We've actually got a set of comments back that we're addressing, resubmitted it, and actually got another set of comments that we're doing a couple minor touch-up, but no request was made on that for additional right-of-way to be given to them.
Cool. I'd still like us to reach out and just belt and suspenders. I'll make a motion to approve this and move it to the next reading but before it comes back, it needs to have a formal response from the county that no additional right-of-way is needed.
We have a motion for the approval of ordinance 2021-57. I'll give it a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item number 7, Madam Clerk?
Public hearing for resolution number 2021-192R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, granting a conditional use to operate an alcohol beverage establishment use on a 5.94 acre property located at 1378 South Narcousie Road, St. Cloud, Florida, as described in the body of this resolution.
Good evening, Jesse Anderson, Senior Planner. This is a conditional use for Good Vibes Lounge. The conditional use is specifically for an alcohol beverage establishment located at 1378 South Narcousie Road. For background, we have a current zoning of highway business with a future land use of commercial. The proposed use is an alcohol beverage establishment and hookah bar. The development is compatible with the general development pattern in the area, and there are no adverse impacts on city facilities. It is consistent with the strategic plan goals of economic development and growth management. And DRC and staff recommend approval of Resolution 2021-192R with conditions. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this resolution on August 17th, 2021, and therefore we request City Council to approve the resolution of 2021-192R with the following conditions: that there shall be no outdoor seating or outdoor music played or streamed, and that if there are 10 police service calls resulting from activities occurring on or emanating from the establishment within any month, the matter shall be brought back before the City Council for consideration of additional use restrictions and or possible revocation of the conditional use permit authorized hereunder. And we do have one extra condition that was not listed on here, which is that we constrain the conditional use to the 2 units that are currently being developed by this applicant, which is Unit A and Unit B. The applicant is here today to answer any questions, and so is staff.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to this?
My name is Ashley Lewis, 1378 South Narcousie Road. I do not have anything. I am here to answer any questions that anyone may have.
And were you in agreement with the conditions that staff placed on the conditional use?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or motion by council.
Motion to approve with the conditions that staff added.
I'm sorry, Ms. Matheny, I saw your light.
Oh,
Forgive
sorry.
me. Could I jump back?
Yep, that's fine.
Recognize Ms. Matheny. I'm multitasking.
That's okay. That's all right. I talked to the police chief about this, and I did like the conditions because there is a bar by my house that I get complaints about all the time.
I
And
live further away and I get complaints
oh
too.
my goodness gracious. Yeah, it's like they put outdoor seating, which, you know, seems innocuous. And then it's like karaoke's happening out there. You know, it goes crazy. So I do like the conditions that were placed on here. And also in my agenda review, when you look at the map, there are 2 single-family homes in close proximity. I did ask in my agenda review, were they notified and did they have any complaints about it? And I was told they were notified and they didn't get any pushback. So that was one thing that I had gotten. So I'll second Mr. Trace's motion.
We have a motion for approval from Councilmember Trace, second by Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
A reluctant aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
A church will go in too, in one of the other buildings.
No, it can't.
Just to balance it out. Yin and yang.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a struggle sometimes. Brings us to council action item number 1.
Good evening, Marjorie Craig, Environmental Utilities Director. Then action item 1 is the Brack Ranch Water and Wastewater Agreement. It's a total land area is 432.3 acres with 721 residential acres, or units rather. So you can see this is where the project is located in the green, and the city limits is in the gold area. So it's pretty close to the city limits, but not quite there, not quite adjacent. So the usual requirements are in the agreement that each single-family residence will be a minimum of 1,500 square feet. Garage setbacks will be a minimum of 25 feet. Each single-family residence will have 4.5 parking spaces, 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, and the remaining of on-street parking and public amenity areas. And the HOA governing documents will prohibit on-street parking, except in those designated areas. And then language about architectural elevations in the facade of homes shall vary, and air conditioner pads and condensing units will be installed with a minimum, with some stagger, and some minimum tree requirements as well. And owners will agree to maintain sidewalks, and crosswalks will be provided at each leg of intersections, as well as owners coordinating with the Osceola County and city staff to ensure crosswalks and warning surfaces comply with all requirements. And prior to issuing any certificate of capacity, the city will receive and review the copy of the recorded declaration of fees, covenants, of restrictions. Staff recommends this water and wastewater agreement. It's available at this location.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this item? Is the applicant? There you are.
Good evening, Joe Thacker, 17 South Orlando Avenue, Kissimmee. If you have any questions, we're happy to address them. The whole team is here, and we have agreed to all of the standard conditions that the city requires.
Well, thank you for your patience. You waited a long time. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we have discussion and/or motion by council. Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. In our joint meeting we had with the county a month ago or 2 months ago, they said they added all of our standard stuff into the land development code. Did we have a chance to check that? The garage setback, the air conditioning unit, all that stuff? I thought they said they added that to the land development code.
Their land development code. Are you talking about our land development?
Their land
Well,
development
but
code.
this is approved in the county, so
Yeah,
it
this is a
shouldn't
county
have to be in our
project.
agreement.
That's what they said in the meeting.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we needed that. I personally disagree with us putting some of these conditions in the utility agreement that, whatever.
His question is, why is it in the agreement if it's in the county's requirements?
Correct.
Good evening, Council. Sean Hindle, Hans Walter Associates, representing the applicant. All of your conditions of your normal or previous agreements are in the county code. The one that is not in the county code is the maintenance of the sidewalks and maintenance of the trees. But
So
every
not
other
all of
agreement,
them,
every other agreement, the setbacks, the staggering of the air conditioning units, the facades, that's all part of the agreement. The parking, everything is part of LDC.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because I know one of the county commissioners said, like, we added all that stuff, you guys haven't done stuff on
Janer.
your side. Yeah, so I just wanted to see. And then also, in the backup for these, it doesn't say anywhere that we have the capacity to serve this, does it?
It does say
Does say it
in the
specifically?
staff recommendation.
Okay.
We have the water wastewater capacity. But a good point about the being in the codes for the county, and we'll amend our water and wastewater agreements and take out all those, that extra gobbledygook, so.
As long as
Not
everyone
all
else is
of
fine
it.
with that, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, the intent
meaning-
was to address it on a project-by-project basis, so we certainly can make sure that we're verifying it through the county. I'm compelled to point out to you that just because it's in the county's code doesn't mean that it ultimately might end up being in the project.
Or the
Or
code
the
can
county,
change too.
or exactly, or the county can do it. The intent of this was to use the water and sewer connection, transaction, contract with the developer to ensure, so the city could ensure that these happen, and didn't have to rely on the county to do it.
Understood.
Okay, then. We'll leave it right in there.
Just whatever.
It's going to make them simpler, but
Leave the gobbledygook in there.
I'd love to
Yeah,
just
we have
strike those
discussion?
things out there.
All right,
Okay.
so we have the capacity?
Yes.
All right. Motion to, as long as no one else, motion to approve resolution 2021-190R.
And I'll give that a second. Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Do I need to state? Go ahead.
go ahead, ask your question.
Gobbledygook.
Go ahead.
I didn't state that Councilmember Trace made the motion and I made the second, so
No, that's fine.
just for the record.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, the workshop next week, we'll be discussing the architectural design standards, our first draft to present to you, see if we're heading in the right direction so we can add it to our land development code. So.
Good. All right. Madam Clerk, will you read item number 2?
Discussion and possible action regarding the ratification of appointee to seat number 5 on the Police and Firefighter Pension Board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I'm doing it. You used a word I can't say.
This is as you know, for the Police and Fire Pension Board, two of the members are elected by the city council, or appointed by the city council, 2 appointed by the members of the pension, and the 5th is elected or appointed by the other 4, subject to the perfunctory review and approval by the city council. So the item before you is to confirm the 5th seat and the appointment of Vinnie Shepherd to that seat number 5.
Motion to approve?
Well, do we need to take public comment?
Do we have any public comment?
It's like all
If not,
city employees. to
I'll
me.
receive a motion from Councilmember Matheny for the adoption of item number 2, and I'll give that a second also. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Manzares?
I do not have anything, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to let council know, I'll be out of the office tomorrow. Ms. Miller will be in charge. I'm going to go see a grandson I hadn't seen in about 4 or 5 months. So.
Would you like to also mention the Regeneron?
Oh, yes, thank you. We were successful working with Osceola Emergency Management and Representative Hawkins' office to get a monoclonal site here in St. Cloud, and I heard it's very busy, which is good. Monoclonal antibodies save lives. My personal story is they saved my daughter's life, and so we worked really hard. Our lobbying team, Chris Carmody, was very instrumental in getting that done too with the governor's office. So we were proud we opened that the other day, and it was nice to meet the governor, and he's very positive about it and very supportive. So it's operating here in St. Cloud, should be for numerous months.
And I too would like to thank you for your work and the staff's work and the governor and Hawkins and everybody else, because it's really making a difference. Councilmember Trace?
I'm good, thank you.
Councilmember Askew?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Matheny?
I have a couple things. I'm sorry, but I'll be really quick. I'm so sorry, but I do have a couple things. So one of the things I brought up before a couple of years ago, but it never has really gotten into place, but our planning department is kicking out all of these long-standing items, so I just want to bring it up again. So our land development code allows for 50% of the open space requirement to be satisfied by a stormwater pond. And I feel like that's too high. So if you have a residential development 20% of the site has to be open space, and they're able to use 50% of their pond area to count towards that number. And I'm like, I don't really know that that's a usable open space, you know. I would like to see if we could move that open space for a pond down to like 25%. You can use 25% of your pond area as open space.
Is it you can use the pond for up to 50% of your open space? So like 20% goes down to 10%, or is it?
I think it's
it takes up the whole thing?
50% of your pond area can be used towards your open space.
She's saying no.
It's up to 50, whatever it is, it's too high.
Yeah, so you still need 10%.
So let's drop it down. So you're saying it's 50% of the 20%, so half of your,
Could you just go up?
Ms. Duncan,
I don't know whoever's gonna, you're nodding your head in the audience.
Can you come to the
Who are you
microphone,
looking to?
please?
Oh, yes, please. I'm sorry.
He has like these.
I was
The
looking up
mayor's
the
calling
answer
on you,
for
Ms.
her
Duncan.
at the same time.
Hi, good evening. Melissa Dunklin, Planning and Zoning Manager. So 50% of the required open space
Can be provided by your
can be
pond.
provided by the pond as long as it's amenitized. We don't have clear definitions on what amenitized means, so a lot of times they'll put like a little stabilized trail around it, or,
Right.
you know, a bench.
And is it the total pond tract, or is it you've calculated the berm?
It is the total pond tract.
So I'd like to see that number go down to 25% so that we get more real usable open space within developments. And I wanted to see how the other council member, we need 3.
You got my vote.
Well, and I guess a clear definition on
Amenitized.
what amenitized is, right?
So I've seen some developments, I don't want to be quick, but I've seen some developments where they'll like put a mulch trail, which that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like I think it needs to be like a real trail with benches and things like that. But yeah, I want to take the percentage down to 25%. Do we have 3?
Yeah, you got Trace.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can
Got
we
it.
get what amenitized is too?
Yeah.
We'll
Let's
work on
clear
that
that up.
piece.
Yeah.
And then what other municipalities do, right? Like if some places it might be 10, it might be 50,
Yeah.
it might be 100%.
Yeah.
Just-
I just think 50 is way too much. I'm like, that's kind of just like, I don't like it. So anyways, great, we'll change that. And if the industry standard around, our little area is 10%, I'm cool with that too, like whatever, but I don't want any higher than 25%.
Do some research.
Yes, absolutely. I got complaints from residents, and I've already mentioned this to the city manager, about the striping on Buttinger near Nolte where the signal is. That it's basically, you cannot see it, like I looked at it on Google, I haven't been out there, but it is really, really like almost non-existent. So I just want to see if you guys would all agree that we would refresh the striping?
So I actually drove through this morning, I saw the issue, and I'm going to have Mr. Edwards address that.
Yeah, we, Don Edwards, Public Works Director, we've put that in as a work order to.
Awesome.
Yep.
What's the timeline on that?
Don't have one, I can get one for you.
That'd be great.
Done.
Before you leave, one last issue.
But if you're looking at that area,
The
can you look
timeline?
at Old Canoe Creek between Nolte and the Turnpike entrance? Because that, some of those, where the curve is, there's just been so much traffic that I think it wore it off.
Yeah.
Will do.
And I got a complaint in that area too, and I didn't see it, but they said there's some big potholes that about takes the trailer off the back of your truck.
When you're making
When
the
you're-
turn, the
yeah.
left turn onto Old Canoe Creek,
Yeah, if you could look at that too.
but
And if
that's,
it might be county,
County,
and if you
yeah.
could just coordinate with the
We'll
county.
look at it.
Yeah.
oh, that Old Canoe Creek is county.
Yeah, it might be the county. Before you go. So last night, you guys know, we had a toad strangler of a rain event.
Toad string?
A what?
Toad strangler. Toad strangler.
You know, frog
From New
drowns in the
York,
water.
what that means.
So, 2 things I noticed was I turned off a 192 onto Tennessee right there by the bank and the Subway sandwich shop, and my car about went underwater right there. So the inlets were just completely like not working, and the water was standing there, which made me think, what's happening with the request that we put to FDOT to look at their drainage system? And I know that predates you, but I did mention it to the city manager. Where are we at with that? And, because I was pretty adamant about it last year when we flooded 192 twice, that basically, I was going to go to our state reps and push it, but I was told, no, let's give them a chance to do it. And I haven't heard anything.
I think I can answer that to a certain degree. We did ask them what the status of that is, and we're waiting for a response back.
Cool. One more thing.
Okay.
So then I was like, then I went on 10th Street. Okay. I came like across 192 and I went down to 10th Street. And 10th Street was flooded. Like if you turned west and like headed by the ball fields, the hospital, and go around the corner. But what it is, it's the grass. So, you know, there's swales on either side of the road, and there was plenty of capacity. But, you know, you have that grass lip that the water can't get off the road. So if we could have our maintenance guys go and, you know, shave down some areas. It happens all the time, especially with St. Augustine, although this isn't St. Augustine, but you get, you know, that 3-4 inches of grass like that runs along the road, and so it just kept all the water.
Is that 17th Street or 10th Street?
I'm sorry, 17th Street.
All right, I'm like, where do we have a ball field?
I'm
on
sorry, it is 17th Street. But if we could go out there and maybe cut some flumes or pull the grass down or something, because I was like, you know, we're driving and I'm just throwing water like above my car on either side, like going down the thing, and I was like, gosh, there's no water in the swales. So
Is there a particular area on 17th Street from where to where?
it's basically hospital, ball fields, senior center. It's that whole area there.
Okay.
So if we could just take a look at that. That's it for me. I tried to be quick, sorry.
That was fast.
You sure there's some other streets you haven't driven on?
I just made up streets, but whatever.
Since I'm up here, if I can just say one thing.
Yes.
Councilman Trey said, or Deputy Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree about needing a traffic impact analysis to make an informed decision on the Lawson development. So I just want to say that I totally get that. And I would, I think you need something a little better than preliminary, considering the density and the traffic situation and all that. So I just.
Well, and we really shouldn't be talking about it, so thank you.
What's that?
You shouldn't be talking about that project right now.
Okay.
We're beyond the public hearing, so we'll leave that.
He had mentioned about the requirements of the code or whatever, and so I'll just, that comment's.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a thank you note thanking the city of St. Cloud for donating contributing $26,000 to the 2021 scholarship fund through the Education Foundation. And I'm just so glad our city years ago set up a foundation so that we could be part of the most generous city around doing that. And we certainly have provided a lot of school student scholarships. Also, Representative Fred Hawkins is sponsoring a farm share on November the 12th, which is a Friday. It will happen to be in the parking lot of Cornerstone Family Church. And I would certainly like to ask the support of the council and the city with this event. The last distribution we had, the city was just awesome in helping to really make it an excellent event and to really helping us to process it well, because it turned out to be a huge
What
response.
time did you say?
November the 12th. I don't have the time. Normally it starts around 9 o'clock to around 1 o'clock.
Those of us that have to serve on the canvassing committee have something that day.
Oh, shoot.
Gee.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're doing a real exciting thing, aren't you? I'm sorry I can't be there, guys. Again, the last thing I just want to say, I read your note about 9/11, Mr. Sturgeon. It was excellent. I just encourage everyone to make sure and read that. You know, it's so hard to believe that 9/11 happened 20 years ago, and I don't think we will ever forget. I hope we don't. And so just encourage everyone to read that. It was an excellent word, and we certainly need to remember that. It's coming up Saturday. That brings us to our information and report section. Thursday, this is a change, a correction. It's not the 16th, the 13th, it is the 16th. The 16th of September, there will be a city council workshop at 3 p.m. here in council chambers. Thursday, September the 23rd, there will be a city council meeting also at 6:30 here at our regular location in City Hall chambers. Several proclamations have been issued. Proclamation recognition of Constitution Week, proclamation recognition of National Pollution Prevention Week. I'd like to also make you aware that there is a warrant list number 17 available for your review. There are no other items on our agenda. With that, unless you're wanting to stay, we are adjourned. Thank all of our staff for your patience.